the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen meeting for January 12th, 6 p.m. This meeting is being conducted remotely. Otherwise, we refer to it as a remote participation meeting, which means I have to read the statement into the record. So here goes. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. All votes during this meeting will need to be conducted by roll call. No in-person attendance is permitted, but every effort is being made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Public participation will be permitted by allowing members of the public to join this meeting via Zoom or via telephone, and also comments can be sent by email to publiccomment@yarmouth.ma.us. I will now conduct a roll call vote for a quorum to enter into the meeting. Selectman Horgan.
Present.
Selectman Stone.
Aye.
Selectman Tolley.
I think he's having a problem with his audio.
Okay. Selectman Post.
Aye.
Okay. And Selectman Forrest votes aye. So we are going to begin the meeting by asking folks to join with the Select Board in a salute to the flag and a pledge of allegiance. So I pledge of allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Now, the first item on the agenda is public comment. And obviously, given the COVID situation, I am going to recognize Bruce Murphy, the Town of Yarmouth health agent, for a few public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Selectmen. I am at the meeting as the Director of Health. I believe we will have Chairman Hillard Bosky on and several other Board of Health members. With that, I can give you the update. Kyle, if you want to just put the to the next page, the cases. As of today, from when we started in March 11th, there has been, as you can see, 756 positive cases that we've had. This does not include, that was as of this morning, and since then we've received 7 more cases and we're up to 763. But we're also following 102 active cases right now within the community. And we've also had during that time 23 deaths. This is from a review of the town clerk death certificates that we went back through from the beginning of the year. Some of these deaths were in nursing homes outside of town, but their residencies were still listed as Yarmouth. So as we go down to the community spread, we can see it's in West Yarmouth, South Yarmouth, Yarmouthport, pretty much throughout the community. Obviously, where the populations area are a little bit higher than in Yarmouthport. We have had a few clusters in a nursing home in adult living care. They have subsided, so most of the cases are spread throughout the community. If you can just bring that down or up a little bit, Kyle, so we can see the bottom of that page, I think we'll be okay. Okay, you can go right to the next page then. Breakdown by age, I think, is important. As you can see that we track this weekly. But you can see from December 10th to December 18th and then till today where the age breakdown within the community, and that's why we could say it's within community spread. And we look at that age group of 20 to 29 has really come up. And also the age group, the smaller age group kids, 0 to 19, we're starting to see more cases also. So it's a community spread. Everybody needs to take precautions no matter what age group they're within. And then you can also go down to the bottom and see as we break it down between male and female. Okay. We go down to the, just charting that out now, the active cases that we've had together since March. You can see the early March, April, May, where the pandemic first started. The active cases leveled off during the summer when people were outside more. And then we come back into where the second wave of the pandemic is, as we can see, November, Thanksgiving, December, and you can see where it's really taken right off. And we're still up in that high area right now. Okay.
Excuse me, everyone. This is JP on the bridge, and anybody that is not speaking right now should have their microphone muted, and we won't have that feedback problem. Thank you. Okay.
This chart just shows the daily cases that we have come into us daily. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we were getting about 3 cases, sometimes 5 cases a day. Then we had a lull during the summer. And now, as you can see it from November, we're easily getting double-digit cases a day. And then we even had that times up in the 20s, up into 29 a day. So that's where we're spending. The office is spending a lot of time. Phil Renault, our health inspector, works very closely with the state tracing and the VNA tracing, just monitoring this. But that's constantly coming in. Is something that we try to monitor where that is out in the community. And that's across the community, as I have said. And that's affecting families, businesses that we try to work with, and try to work with the Chamber of Commerce if there's questions also. Okay. This just mentions where the total of the 23 deaths have come through in a period of time from March through where we are now. Kind of following where we had that earlier beginning of the pandemic, went slow during the summer, and then we're seeing it back inside at 9 deaths in December, and we've had 3 in January already. And we tried to make a little note. It's probably hard to see at home, or where you're looking at it, where the people passed away, whether it was at home, Cape Cod Hospital, they might have been transferred to Cape Cod Hospital, or a particular nursing home that they might have been in. So we do monitor that on a regular basis also. Okay, the next chart is one that the state puts out every Thursday night, Friday morning on the high-risk communities that are noted in red. And you'll note that last Thursday, 10 towns on the Cape are now considered red high-risk communities. We look at Yarmouth at the bottom. Over the last 14 days, there were 170 positive cases. And that was based on the testing of 2,551 people. So our positivity rate has decreased, but it's still higher than the county average. So you can see the community spread has, besides in the community in the state, has now spread across the Cape. Okay. Precautions, just to keep reminding the people precautions that we all need to take. And the question is, what can we do as a community to get out of the red high-risk community? And I think we all need to be working on avoid gatherings, dinner parties, birthday parties, sleepovers, play dates, carpooling unless you're within with a family member. If not, wear a mask. If you don't feel well, go get a test. Stay home from work. If you're waiting for a test, do not go to school or to work. We're still getting cases that come in and say, oh, I went to work for a few days and I didn't think I really had COVID. And then we find out that it spread throughout their work area. So we try to keep stressing that as part of the contact tracing. But we all need to work of what we can do as a community to get out of the red, to stop the spread. So we keep stressing mask up, social distancing, wash hands. We have electronic signboard across from Town Hall. We added a second one the end of last week. The fire department was able to get one from the county health department that we put on 28 by West Yarmouth Road. And we used the, working with the police, we've relocated the police message board up to the landfill because we're receiving continuing complaints of people not wearing a mask up at the landfill. So we need to get that mentality of everybody needs to help us get out of a high-risk community. So we're trying to get the message out there as much as we can. Two more slides left. One is that as we're sure you're all getting, is where do we get the vaccine and when can we get the vaccine out? We are currently in phase 1 of vaccine distribution. That's going from the state to the hospital, Cape Cod Hospital, who's getting out to the Cape Cod healthcare workers. They're also getting it out to the long-term care in nursing homes. We have our nursing homes in town getting the vaccine now, and a couple are scheduled for later this month. So it's good to see it's in the nursing homes now for the residents and the staff people. Police, fire, emergency workers will be getting their vaccination tomorrow. I set up working with both the fire and police departments. This clinics for tomorrow will be for the fire department, then Thursday for the police department. So we'll be getting those going, and then 28 days we'll be giving them their second shot. So that's phase 1. As phase 1 winds down from the state giving the shots out and working with Cape Cod Healthcare, we go into phase 2, which will be in February. There is not a specific date. That doesn't mean it's starting February 1st or February 10th. It's going to ease into as the vaccine becomes available. Right now, it's looking at age 75 and older, or people with 2 complications. Right now, we have discussions with the county health department on regional sites that the town will be assisting in. And we'll get that notice out to the people through the state social media, our town social media. We'll get that out through a code red robocall, and along with our YouTube video updates to get out to the community. So as that becomes available, which is probably 3 weeks away, we'll be getting that message out. At some point in time, it will then go down to within phase 2, school teachers, K through 12, restaurants, public works, sanitation, and then we'll be down to 65 other people with health issues. We'll be working with the VNA to try to get out to homebound. We're getting a lot of questions with that, when we can get homebound patients. We'll be working with the VNA and also other healthcare providers on that. And then phase 3 will be later in April at that period of time. Hopefully that the pharmacies will have it available very soon, that they'll be getting it out that way and be participating in phase 2 also, along with the county and Cape Cod Healthcare. And lastly, the last page that I think we have, Kyle, I think there should have been one more. But if not, Kyle, if you don't have it, we had a video YouTube update that was released Friday. I think it was posted Monday. Thank you for helping on that, Kyle and JP, that I gave more of a detailed on statistics along with the vaccination, a little bit more discussion on that was available, along with meeting Roby Whitehouse Waste Management Superintendent up the landfill of their new sign in what they're doing for promoting safety and mask up at the landfill. So if you need more information, go to the town YouTube website. That's been very effective. The last one we had was with the food pantry, and we had approximately 700 views already on that one. So that kind of is the quick overview, Mr. Chairman and Selectmen. I do have our Board of Health Chairman Hillard, if you'd like to say anything.
I just want to advise everybody that for folks that are listening, we've been getting some calls here at Town Hall that there's a fair amount of static with respect to this meeting. I just want to assure everybody that we're doing everything that we can to try to fix the problem. So we're going to just try to keep things moving along. I'm going to recognize Hillard Bosky, the chairman of the Board of Health, for a few minutes. Hillard, thanks for joining us, and feel free to offer a comment.
Yeah, sure. Bruce did a great job. Board of Health met last night and we looked at the same numbers as what you're looking at tonight. I know this is public comment, so I'll be happy to take any questions if anyone has. I know we have a limited amount of time here.
Any board members have any questions for the health agent or the chairman of the Board of Health?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Stone.
Bruce, when you were talking about phase 2, I believe you said 2 different things, and I think that's because there's 2 different slides or pictorials on phase 2. The one that was shown on the screen tonight says in group 2 or phase 2, people 65 years or older. But the one I've seen, which I think is more recent than that, says that for phase 2, it's people 75 years or older, or people, elderly people with 2 morbidities. Now, I don't want people to get confused because there was 2 different recitations made with respect to phase 2, and that elderly population may be confused. Am I correct that the screen showing adults 65 and older in phase 2 is not the correct phase 2 order of priority?
Correct. Unfortunately, the state had not updated this sheet from last week, so that's the one we're using. That's why I mentioned within the presentation that 75 would be included in the first part of phase 2. There's a lot of discussion now at the state level as we move that way that they might go to 65 and above. So
I wanted to make that clear because we'll get more calls than not. Yeah. Obviously, within that 10-year period, there's a lot of people. Now, going back to the rate of infection, and we talked about that last time you were here in January. I think Dr. Bosky mentioned that we should be looking at the rate of infection as opposed to the number of cases, because number of cases, what does that really mean? If you look at the number of cases, you can make assumptions about the people that weren't tested, like saying, for example, they're not infected, which is not a valid assumption. So I think the rate currently that you showed is about 6.6. Is that correct?
Yes, if you could go back a couple sheets, Kyle, that would be helpful. There you go.
Yeah, 6.66. And did I hear you correctly that you said it has gone down recently?
Yes, 2 weeks ago we were at about high 7s.
You were at high 7s, but 6.66 is still a pretty high rate compared to what we were seeing in the springtime.
Correct.
Now, I don't want to dominate this questioning, but I do have one other question I'd like to ask you. There's a lot of controversy about schools reopening. I'm hearing a lot from teachers, from parents, administrators. Everybody's got a different take on whether or not schools should be open. And as you know, Barnstable has decided not to go live for at least another week, and DY has elected to go live this week. The question I have is, were you and/or the Board of Health consulted prior to that decision being made? And if so, did you make any recommendations either way?
I am in touch with the school nurse and the superintendent's office from time to time. We have not had any clusters in schools. We have not had any spread in the classroom. Yes, we've had a positive student, but it has not spread through the classroom. We've also had positive teachers that have not spread through the classroom. No different than some of our business workplaces in town that have had positive cases that have not necessarily spread throughout the business. So without any clusters within the school, the precautions they've been taking working closely with the nursing staff, that if we see a case come in, we're in touch with the nursing staff at nights and over the weekend to make sure a positive student doesn't go in there and in contact with his family. So we're in close contact with the school. It's obviously it's a decision they make. If they ask us, but they know what the numbers are, and we work with them closely.
The Board of Health was not contacted directly, to answer your question.
Let me just ask if there are any other board members. I appreciate the public's indulgence in this. Obviously, given the way things are changing, there's a lot of interest in what's going on, and I regret that we didn't post this as an agenda item and give everybody sufficient time to be prepared to discuss this. So I'm going to ask you if there are any other board members with questions, and then we're going to go to the rest of public comments. Tracy, any comments, questions? No? Dan Horgan? Okay. And Eric Tolley. Eric, did you have anything?
I don't even know. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. That's
Okay.
great.
All right. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate everyone's indulgence, but given what's happening in terms of COVID, I just felt it would be helpful to at least hear from our health agent. Bruce, I appreciate everything that you're doing, and I appreciate the word we all do here on the Board of Selectmen. We appreciate all the work by the Health Department and the Board of Health. And I can tell you the next time we have a meeting, we'll be putting you on the agenda, and we'll make sure that we get more time for presentation and discussion. So thank you. I am going to call on Kyle to recognize anybody else that's got their hand raised for public comment. Do we have any other people?
Yeah, we got a few people. First one being Mr. Joe Glenn.
Mr. Glenn, the floor is yours.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Actually, we can hear you quite well. I hope people at home can
Oh,
hear.
good.
Go
Maybe
ahead.
they can hear me without even the TV. But that's a good thing. So Joe Glenn, just wanted to reiterate a general suggestion for questions for your DY school committee appointments. I had submitted some questions to the selectmen as requested by Selectman Horgan with more specific detail. But one of the general ones that I think is most appropriate to ask of the candidates, and hopefully you agree with me, the board agrees with me, that the question being whether any of the candidates or all of the candidates or some of the candidates would be pulling papers for nominations to run for the school committee positions, because as you know, the budget time is fast upon us, and there could be someone who a candidate that you nominate or you appoint, and then after so many weeks, depending on when the election is, we have to some other candidate runs for the position and wins. We got to train up, and there's a Mass Association of School Committee training and other training, but just a normal budget ramp up and understanding going through, which you all know is very important. And Tracy can attest that we were already on the subject of budget. And by the way, Tracy, your one day appointment was flawless. So so that was just a general question that I think is important. Good luck with the interview. I'm sure you'll appoint someone. I think there's 4 good candidates there. I believe it's 4. But thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. Have a great night.
Thank you. We also have, let's recognize Vida Morris. She's next in line here in the queue. Kyle, can you put her on?
Yep.
This is Vida Morris. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. The first thing I have is a housekeeping item. Each one of the board members is identified by their name, and then the word selectmen behind their name. Unfortunately, each single one, every last one of them has the plural in there. I wish people wouldn't make stupid mistakes like that. It says select men instead of select man. So just a little, as I said, housekeeping thing.
Thank you.
But then if you remember, I asked you about more than a month ago, I guess, if the board would get in touch by letter or some way with the superintendent's office and see if she can move the Dennis people to pay up what they owe us under the rules of for the feasibility study, under the rules of that were adopted and voted on in the revised district agreement. Has anything been done about that?
I will have to check on the latest on that. And we'll talk about that later for upcoming agenda items.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barron, Kyle, could you give him the floor?
Good evening. Good evening. As a member of the planning board, I heard your comments earlier about the community visioning effort and the survey that has been conducted over the last couple of months. The survey, the visioning survey, will continue until the end of January. And we've had very good attendance at our workshops, and we're looking forward to another round of workshops in the spring. So we, planning board, is recommending everyone get a look at the visioning survey. And as I just heard a comment, yes, it doesn't take but about five or 6 minutes to actually get through it. It's also in Spanish and Portuguese languages, so that those communities can also participate. We encourage everyone to take the visioning survey and watch out for our workshops, as I said, in the spring. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Next in the queue is Rachel Youngling. Kyle, can you give Rachel the floor?
Yep, she got it.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 points to briefly make this evening. The first is you have quite an accomplished slate in front of you for the school committee, and I encourage you to endorse Michelle Conover for this position. I believe she's the one in the group that has demonstrated experience as a school committee member and is willing to take on the tough tasks and questions relative to curriculum, budget, and especially accountability to our citizens. She also has a comprehensive understanding of the Chapter 70 formula, which is a really critical component of our school funding formula. And she finally is extremely thorough in her research and listening to all constituents involved in problems and the situations presenting themselves. So I'd like you to strongly consider her for that role for the remainder of Brian Sullivan's term. Secondarily, I just would like to let you know that I have been appointed by Katie Service as an interested party and a stakeholder in the planning. Did you hear anything I said, or was I muted the whole time?
You'll have to repeat that last comment once right after Katie Service.
Okay, so Katie Service, the airport manager, has appointed me as an interested party and stakeholder on the planning advisory group for the airport master plan. So we will have additional members from the town of Yarmouth serving in that capacity when the meetings resume next week. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for that update. Appreciate that. I don't see anybody else seeking recognition for public comments. So we are going to move on to the next item on the agenda. For those of you who are having trouble at home hearing our meeting, we're still working on trying to fix the static. Just so that you know, here among the board members and the people that are in on the Zoom call, we can hear each other and discuss things without much interference at all. So hopefully we can not only correct it, but if we have difficulty doing that, we'll try to set it up so that at least whatever's put out on video or on YouTube will be a clean version of this meeting. So let's move on to the next item. The next item on the agenda is school committee business. We have DY Regional School Committee candidate interviews and vote. Before we get in the interviews, I'm going to ask Dan Horgan, the appointments chair, to go over for the board and give us a chance to go over how we're going to conduct this next phase of our meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, good evening, everybody, and welcome to all of the citizens of the various communities. It's nice to have you with us tonight. I particularly want to welcome Michelle, Will, Zane, and Tom, and thank them for putting themselves forward into this process. We're very fortunate to have 4 good candidates who put themselves in a position to be appointed this evening. If I could, I'd like to take a minute and just talk now about process. I emailed you earlier today and offered a suggested process that included 3 to 4 minute opening by each candidate, and then going into questions by each Board of Selectmen member. I suggested around 4 to 5 minutes. I in no way mean to limit any board member. I'm just trying to be sensitive in terms of overall time. And then I also emailed you 5 questions earlier today that we can deal with as you like. I threw them out there because I thought they were potentially general questions that we might ask each candidate to get a flavor of how each of them answered that particular question. Or if you prefer, you can just ask your own questions, and I can use some of my time to ask those questions or others. So I'm just looking for a little feedback in terms of how you'd like to proceed at this point.
So let me make sure I understand this, Dan. Opening statement of how many minutes for each candidate?
I think I said, what did I say, 3 to 4 minutes approximately?
Okay, and
No,
then
I'm not gonna, I don't want to be a tyrant about the time, but at the same point, we have an awful lot to get accomplished in a short time. So I've emailed that information to all of the candidates. And then with 4 candidates and 5 selectmen, we're talking, you know, 20, 40, 60, 100 minutes, just if we stay to the 5 minutes each. So, and then I've suggested that they each have an opportunity to just do a summation to perhaps address any questions that came up that they didn't address, or to sum up why they think they're the most appropriate candidate for the position. So if anybody would like to suggest something different or a different way of going about it, or whether you'd like to ask those questions or not ask those questions, I'm open to any input by board members.
okay, well, let me ask if there are board members that want to make suggestions. I think what we're trying to do here with Dan is to make sure that we're all clear on the ground rules, because we really haven't had a chance as a board to discuss this. I think opening and a closing, and then each board member asks 1 question. Is that what you're suggesting, Mr. Horgan? And then,
Well, what I'm suggesting is that I've put out 5 generalized questions. Each select person could pick one of those questions and ask it of all 4 candidates.
okay,
Or I can ask the questions if they prefer to just ask their own questions. But each selectman, each Board of Selectmen member will have upwards of 5 minutes to ask whatever questions they wish to each particular candidate.
all right.
And then after that, there would be summations, and then I turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, to have board discussion on the appointment.
Okay. Any comments for Dan or any suggestions on changes?
Mr. Chairman,
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let me go to Mike, and then I'm going to go right to Eric. Go ahead, Mike.
I don't have any hard and fast preferences on this, but instead of a particular selectman questioning an applicant for 5 minutes, it may be more productive to look at the time in a combined sense and rotate questions one at a time for each selectman. And the reason I say that is, suppose I have 5 minutes with someone and I ask a series of questions that other board members had on their list, then I'll kind of be preempting their questions. Whereas if we alternate questions and I see that they're asking some of the questions I would ask, I'm going to be moving through my list or my notes to try to ask something that wasn't asked before. And I think that methodology would probably avoid repetition of questions and probably save time too. Thank you.
Okay, Eric?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. The way that we've done this the 2 times prior is that each selectman, for instance, if it started with me, I would ask a question and all 4 candidates would answer the same question. Then it would move to the next select board member to ask a question. All 4 candidates would answer that question. I don't want somebody else, I don't want to spend 5 minutes listening to Mike ask 27 questions, all of which I had on my list, and then I got nothing to ask. It doesn't even make sense. So I think that, you know, we go down the line of Board of Selectmen, you know, we could limit it to 1 question per selectman. That's going to take long enough with 4 candidates, maybe 2, but you know, that's the way it's been done the 2 times prior, and it's worked very effectively those times. I don't, you know, again, I think that to allow each selectman to rattle off as many questions of as many candidates as they can in 5 minutes isn't going to be productive.
Thanks, Eric. Tracy?
Selectman Post, do you have anything you'd like to?
Just having been through it a couple times before, I concur with both Eric and Mike. I think it flows better that way.
Okay. Then we'll proceed that way. And as far as opening statements, what I did was I took people in the order in which we received their paperwork. So I have 4 different cards here, and I'm just going to pull them out randomly and ask the 4 candidates to answer a question in that order. I do want to make sure that all 4 candidates, I saw that they're all present. Could we just check, Mr. Chairman, and make sure that they're all able to hear and that we can hear them?
Can you announce the candidates and then Kyle will bring them on?
Sure. So our candidates are Michelle LaRoe Conover.
Okay, we'll bring them on. Bingo. Okay, Michelle's on.
Here we go. Hi.
Okay, we have Zane Fitzgerald.
Bingo.
Here.
Will Rubenstein. And Thomas Tolentino. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just go through and pull something out. And I pulled out 3. And Mr. Zane Fitzgerald.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Horgan. I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to interview for this position of interim school committee member. Being an active community member, I felt compelled to offer my time and efforts at such an important and critical time. A little bit about my service to the district. It started last year on Wixon Site Council and has continued as a current member this year. As a result of my consistent and engaged service, I was asked to be one of the 12 parents, I believe that was the number, involved in the district's reopening task force this past summer. Throughout the summer, I worked closely in the Wixon subgroup with teachers, parents, the union head, and Mr. Blake to advocate for the children and help find the most suitable situation in an unfortunate circumstance that was put upon the district and the entire world. In over a year of service, I haven't missed one site council meeting, one reopening task force Zoom meeting, and that's in addition to attending many of the recent school committee meetings, both leading up to the start of school and thereafter as some of the initial excitement wore off. Also worth noting is I have 3 children, 2 in the district schools and a third fast approaching. I think it's important to note that my professional career helps working in a setting such as this. I'm in sales and account management, helping customers internationally implement new production lines. I'm able to work effectively in high pressure situations and communicate with people and companies from various countries and cultures. This lends to a strong background and proper etiquette, and I have experience in how to contribute meaningfully in large meetings on important subjects with multiple entities representing different interests. I've been recognizing these groups for my ability to keep topics on track and provide different and insightful points of view. All this has been done both in person as well as on Zoom, lending to a comfortability in both in person and the online platform. In my experience, any committee is only as effective as its participants' willingness to follow rules and provide their experience at the appropriate time. I'm more than happy to follow the rules. My experience and the passion I possess, I believe I could serve with the potential to be an excellent advisor and school committee member for the DY school district. I would be proud to have the opportunity to serve on this committee, not out of an exercise in my own personal ego, but rather as an engaged citizen hoping to serve a higher ideal. I appreciate your time and consideration, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have for me the best I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fitzgerald. Welcome. Next up will be Will Rubenstein. Mr. Rubenstein.
Yes, thank you. I come before the town of Yarmouth tonight for the second time to be considered for election to the DY School Committee. Specifically, I think there are 4 reasons why I'm a good candidate and why I think you should appoint me. Number 1, I'm a parent, also an active volunteer, a Yarmouth business owner who specializes in youth development, and I have campaigned as a write-in candidate for the school committee in the June 30th, 2020 Yarmouth town election. Our daughter SJ really blossomed when she started Station Avenue Elementary School 4 years ago in kindergarten. And I can tell you that I know she and I, and Sandy, my wife, miss the really amazing, kind, dedicated teachers and the caring staff at SAE. Since September, Miss Ames and the entire Wixon staff have created an amazing, healthy, safe learning environment for her in person. And let's not forget, she's also had the chance to attend school and make friends with some really amazing kids from Dennis. For the past 3.5 years, I've served on the DY School Building Committee, and I've shared hundreds of hours of time while passionately advocating for the most prudent, yet at the same time modern school that Yarmouth can actually afford. I've attended dozens of combined PTO meetings, field days, reading nights, spaghetti dinners, book fairs, ice cream shows, socials, it's a hard word to say. And I've also chaperoned a bunch of field trips. And I will also say, as a volunteer Big Brother through the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of the Cape and Islands, I actually was fortunate enough to enjoy weekly lunch and recess visits, both at ME Small and Wixon over a 4-year period with my little brother who now attends Mattakese. My advocacy work is rooted in 25 years of experience in leadership roles with recreational service providers. My wife Sandy and I moved to Cape Cod in May of 2004, just 3 weeks before our oldest daughter was born. And the reason was to purchase, run, and raise our family at Camp Wingate Kirkland in Yarmouthport. And as co-owner since 2004, Sandy and I have hired and managed over 1,000 employees, and we've transformed the lives of thousands of children and young adults. Between April and the end of June in 2020, I ran as a write-in candidate to serve on the school committee. And despite the challenges of running as a write-in candidate during a national pandemic, over 750 Yarmouth voters chose me to represent them. They did that because they wanted someone who had experience in town committees, who understood the world of youth development, who know how to balance a budget, and by possessing the highest ethical and moral values would make Yarmouth proud. While I did lose to Mr. Glynn at the polls, 750 Yarmouth residents voted for me, and I have still not lost my passion and dedication to serve. I would have to step down from appointments on the planning board and the capital budget committee, but I do so knowing that there's a great deal of work ahead for the school committee, including our response to COVID-19, the development and outreach for the new diversity and inclusion subcommittee, our annual negotiations with the DYEA and the DYRSAA, of course, review and oversight of the district's annual budget, and the bidding, construction, and move-in for the DY Intermediate Middle School. And that is in addition to some much needed updates to the regional agreement via a subcommittee of each town's representatives. So as we look ahead, our town requires creative thinkers who will listen and who will collaborate. And working together with Dennis representatives, I pledge to create a school community that balances safety, budget, and educational outcomes. I believe I'm the best overall candidate for this position and ask you to select me tonight to serve the remainder of Brian Sullivan's term. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rubenstein, and welcome. Next up is Michelle LaRoe Conover. Ms. Conover, is it LaRoe or are you going by LaRoe Conover?
It's Conover, but I go by LaRoe Conover for work.
All right.
When you write books, that
and
happens.
Please give us your opening.
Well,
Michelle,
thank you.
Michelle,
Yeah.
one second. I hate to interrupt.
That's okay.
For those, I'm told that we still have a static problem, and I want to recommend for those of you who are watching this on Channel 18, this meeting can be also watched on the Town of Yarmouth's YouTube channel, and we checked that, and the quality of the sound in the meeting is far superior there. So if you went to YouTube and Googled the Town of Yarmouth, you would find this meeting proceedings taking place, and the sound would be static free. So just a suggestion. Sorry about that, Michelle, but I know there are a lot of people watching tonight, and we want to make sure that they get the opportunity to hear from everybody.
Well, thank you. I am Michelle Conover. I am the parent of 2 children in our district. I have a student at Wixon and I have a student at Mattakees. We are also parenting a 1 and a 2-year-old, so we are starting over and look forward to many more years in the district. As some of you remember, we've been together here before. In 2015, I was appointed by the Board of Selectmen to fill a vacancy on the school committee. And upon successful completion of that, I did run and I was elected for a term. Since my children became students in our district, I have consistently served on school councils. I currently serve on the Wixon School Council, and I currently serve on the Mattakees PTO. I've coached basketball, I lead Girl Scouts, and we serve as licensed foster parents in our community. In my professional life, I'm a managing partner of a portfolio of businesses in the nanny industry. Though I hold a degree in chemistry, I've been in my industry for more than half of my life. I advocate for high quality childcare. I educate nannies in over 30 countries on best practices in childcare. I match nannies and families, and I publish an industry trade publication. I've also authored 4 parenting books, some before I was married, so that's why my name goes by Michelle LaRoe Conover in my work. I've also served as an expert in my industry across a variety of websites and publications and brands. I'm passionate about education and equal access to quality education for all students. I really believe that we shouldn't just do things the way we've always been doing them because that's the way they've been done. I think it's important to step back, to analyze, to reevaluate, to be sure what we're doing is working. I also believe that parents should be empowered to make the best choices for their children. And that really comes with education and communication. Parents need the information needed to make informed and educated decisions that are best for their families. Given the uncertainty of how the COVID pandemic will continue to impact our students, our staff, our teachers, our budget, our education, and the programs that we offer, having someone who is experienced and understands the framework of how the school committee works is essential. Having good working relationships with other board members is important. Being personally invested in equality and inclusion in education, and someone who has a track record of fulfilling an appointed seat on the school committee and running again and getting the support of the community is important. I meet that criteria, and at such a time as this, I believe I am the best candidate for the job. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much and welcome. It's nice to have you with us tonight. And finally, last but not least, Mr. Thomas Tolentino, welcome, and we'll have your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Selectmen, Dennis Yarmouth School Committee members, and fellow Yarmouth residents. My name is Tomas Tolentino, and I've resided in Yarmouth for the past 10 years. However, I spent my entire life vacationing on Cape Cod and made my dream come true of making it home. I have a bachelor's in science and hospitality management from Johnson & Wales University and have been working in the hospitality field for over 22 years. I have managed several wonderful resorts here in Cape Cod, including 2 in Yarmouth, and currently am the general manager at the Fairfield by Marriott in Hyannis. Through my varied work experiences, I've had many duties, including working with a union and collecting bargaining agreement, so I understand many of the restrictions and requirements that go along with that. I also spend a majority of my time working on the financial side of my business, working on both budgets and working with third-party vendors to ensure we get the best price and the best work. On top of my career, I've also learned what it means to give back to the community. My father immigrated to this country when he was 3 from the Dominican Republic, and both of my parents served in the Marines and devoted their life to giving back. My father coached me in sports, as well as received an award from the state of New Jersey for his 25 years of service to his town's school committee. Since I have moved to the Cape, I have done a variety of volunteer work in the community. From working with both Dennis Yarmouth High School and Barnstable High School, I have done job fairs, mentored interns, done mock interviews, and a variety of other partnerships. I've also spent the last 3 years volunteering and judging on both the local and state level with DECA. My most important role and job now is being the parent to a 7-year-old first grader at Station Avenue Elementary School. I've been an active member since he started at Station Avenue Elementary with the PTO and now serve as the treasurer-elect for the next school year. Other than my volunteer work with the PTO, I've also spent the last 5 years serving as a program facilitator for the Children's Community Engagement, CFCE, a program funded by the Massachusetts Department of Early Education and Care and managed by Cape Cod Children's Place. As a facilitator, I've run programs that include Book and Cook, where I engage children in culinary adventures and incorporate a story to go along. I also facilitate Dad and Me, a monthly program for dads and their children to help encourage and inspire dads to spend more time with their kids. Since COVID hit, I have also done a Zoom father support group. As I watched last night's school committee meeting, I was glad to hear what I did about diversity. The reason I made the decisions to apply is just that. As Ms. Post stated last night, children need to see diversity in elected positions. Whether it was our previous president or our newly elected vice president, we have made great strides in making this happen. I was also very happy with the town of Dennis with their new appointment to their interim school committee member. Dennis and Yarmouth School District is doing the right thing and looking for ways to celebrate and encourage a diverse workforce. This will only strengthen our stance as a school and a premier choice in school choice. I feel my many years of hospitality experience have taught me a lot about teamwork, working with the public, as well as the importance of taking your time to make critical decisions. This, along with my volunteer work, make me a great candidate for this interim position. Regardless of what happens tonight and whoever you choose for this position, it is my plan to officially run and be on the ballot during the next election. Thank you for your time and consideration of me for this interim role.
Thank you, Mr. Tolentino, and welcome. I just want to invite the 4 candidates to sit back and relax. You've done the hard part now. You've put yourself forward. We're just going to ask some questions. I'd ask you to be as succinct and direct as you can be with your answers, and we'll move through this process as quickly as we can, giving everybody the time they need to answer fully. So I'll recognize first Selectman Tolley. Do you want to take the first round of questions?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to start by saying thank you all very much for your interest in this position. I think we can all agree that putting yourself out there for something like this is not an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of courage, and if you're a successful candidate, it will certainly take a lot of work. So thank you all very much again for your interest. I guess the question that I will start off with is, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the district in the next, let's say 3 years, were you to be elected in the spring. That would be the duration of that term. So greatest challenges facing the district in the next 3 years. And Dan, I don't know who starts.
Just name the particular candidate yourself, and we'll go through all 4 of them.
We'll start with Tom, please.
Sure. I think a lot of the stuff that was discussed yesterday, as they talked about the plans for the budget, how to plan for next year, not knowing what will bring. And I think that what was voted on yesterday and the diversity and inclusion and what we can do as a town and a school district to make sure that that's part of our thing. I think those are the 2 big things. And obviously, you know, the next biggest thing would be the oncoming of the school and what will happen and how that will move and take place. Those are probably 3 of the most important things I think are coming up for us and will be part of the school committee's major things to look at.
Thank you, Tom. Zane, same question? Or did?
Hi. So the first and primary concern is COVID-19. How we can manage the physical health of our students. You know, the school committee being the person that the group that gives the superintendent a clear direction of what the educational goals they want to achieve are. And after we're sure that the students are in fact safe and the teachers are safe, how we recover from the emotional toll that will be put through that. And wrapped in that, not just afterwards, but during it and all that is, so we saw in the presentation last night that 48% of Yarmouth is economically disadvantaged, and this has been an eye-opening opportunity to see who does and who doesn't have support at home from the people that take care of them, and what we can do to help bridge the gap to make sure that nobody falls in those cracks that have become fissures, I think, as the pandemic has gone along. So.
Great, thank you very much. Will, what do you see as the biggest challenges the district will face in the next 3 years?
Well, for sure, managing COVID-19 and its not only its current effects, but also the effect that it's having not just on the children, but also on our staff. I think we heard a lot last night, and I've heard in many other meetings about the legitimate concerns of staff and teachers in the district and wanting more transparency in how COVID-19 is being managed at the school committee level. I would say the second challenge is effective communication between Yarmouth and Dennis. That while it is a challenge, I think it can be overcome, but that is to me a second major challenge. And this isn't just about school committee member to school committee member. This is about residents, boards, committees, staff communicating effectively together. And the third challenge, I would say, is the uncertainty around state and federal funding and how we continue to deliver the best educational outcomes given the amount of flux that we are dealing with on the national and state level.
Very good, thank you. Michelle?
Thank you. The school committee has many key responsibilities. Their responsibilities for policy, for budget, for collective bargaining, and for hiring and the evaluation of the superintendent. Even in the midst of COVID, those things haven't changed. COVID remains administratively, the superintendent, the administrator is in charge of things related to COVID. But the school committee can drive policy and determine how policy and goals are impacted and make adjustments to those policies and goals to navigate through the pandemic. When we talk about the challenges, I think the first challenge is the budget. The budget drives everything. The first thing that I learned as a school committee member before was to follow the money. And I think with that comes back to that whole idea of zero-based budgeting. Sometimes we get a lot of free money in our budget. Sometimes we continue programs, we continue funding initiatives, and we don't take time to stop and see if those are still working. And then that money just gets folded into the budget and the budget gets bigger. So it's important to really assess kind of line by line where our money is going so that we can provide high quality education within the means of what our citizens are able able to support. So the budget, I think, is the number one challenge. The second challenge, I think, is to continue moving forward with the regional agreement and building that relationship between the two towns. I think diversity inclusion is super important, and we're going to see some big changes. I was really happy last night to hear the school committee talk about long-term solutions and approaches, to not, throw a million band-aids on something to see if they stick, but to be really thoughtful and methodological, and to really kind of step back, evaluate, be willing to call in other experts that are specialists in those different fields to provide insight and input. So I think those are the three challenges that we'll face in the next several years here.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Horgan, that is my question, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trolley. Select Board Member Post.
Thank you, and thank you all. I agree with the comments before about stepping up and putting yourself out there. It's not particularly easy, but we're really, really grateful to have such wonderful community members that get involved. My question would be, some of you have answered about whether or not you would run or not, but saying this appointment would be from now until May, it's a very short period of time. There's a lot of budgetary issues that will happen in that time. But if you could tell us one specific accomplishment that you would like to accomplish in that time, should you be appointed, I'd be interested in hearing that. So we'll go in the opposite direction this time. We'll start with you, Michelle.
Hi. I think one of the biggest things that I would hope to accomplish is to ensure that our budget, again, is kind of moving towards that zero-based direction, that every line item is kind of analyzed and that we know where the money is going. For example, during my last term of service on the school committee, we were able to identify that there were a lot of Medicaid reimbursements that weren't getting paid. There was a lot of money that wasn't being reimbursed because it just, the process, the system, or whatnot, we were able to recoup some of those funds. So there's different ways to look at the budget and to really justify the reason and the rationale between the expenses, especially when we're in a situation where we are now, where we're not quite sure of how that funding is going to pan out. Last night, they talked about, pool testing for COVID and how there's a possibility that we may get baited on that it would be free to start, but then down the road, there may be costs associated with that. So I'd be interested in kind of looking at the different pieces of the budget and having justification for each expense and evaluating where we can bring savings, because truly, when we have a budget that we can work with, we're able to do the programs, we're able to meet our students' needs, we're able to introduce new initiatives, in a way that makes sense.
Thank you, Michelle. Will?
One of my favorite TV shows of all time is Lost. And we're not here to discuss about how that show ended, but I want to discuss how the show began, and that's going to answer my question. The central theme of that TV show was very simple: live together or die alone. Now, I don't want to emphasize the dying part. I want to emphasize the living together part. So to answer your question, Tracy, what I want to accomplish between now and May is working together and hopefully being appointed to the subcommittee on the regional agreement so that we can build and work and make meaningful progress and to continue on the right path with the town of Dennis. We are in a regional school district, and I am proud of the fact that I have dozens and dozens of friends, co-workers, camp families who live in Dennis and love our schools as much as we do. And so that's what I'm really excited to accomplish if I'm allowed and appointed to that regional subcommittee over the next 5 months.
Thank you. Zane, I was trying to remember the last order.
Thank you. So as we know, 4 to 5 months is not a long period of time. While work can be done, we're not going to reinvent the wheel, I think, in the short amount of time before the next election. My greatest and biggest frustration has been what I feel to be a lack of transparency from the school committee superintendent's office to the parents. It's not that I think anybody has any negative motives or that they're purposely trying to withhold things, I would hope, but I think that it's built a general distrust between the parents and the community, as well as the school committee. And I think that with a little bit more communication, we could hopefully bridge a gap. And my feeling about community politics is that the more people engaged in it, the better that we all are, that as a sum of the parts, we're much greater than the sum of each individual. And anything we can do to, help people be involved in the process. I mean, last night, for instance, we were at the school committee meeting and I was asking questions about the batch testing that was coming up. And really all I wanted to know was it something that we were looking at? Not thinking that I know the answers better than anyone else, but, as a parent, we are really interested to understand what it is that the district is doing to protect our children and what the process that goes into it. And, lastly, I'll say that I find it frustrating that in general, my experience with the COVID process has been a lack of communication, and the fact that before DY went back to school that we didn't at least contact the Yarmouth Director of Health or the Board of Health to at least hear what they have to say about it, seems like a waste of valuable resources of people that have medical degrees that know far more than anybody on the school committee who doesn't. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. Tomas?
Thank you. I know there's a very short period of time that everyone stated. We only have a couple of months. I think a lot of the stuff that we'll be working on is towards the budgets, and our role as school committee is mostly policy. And the administration will continue to do what they do about the response to COVID-19. So we'll be a supporting member to them and a guide as make any policy that's necessary, but making sure that we're prepared and ready for next year. Because that's a lot of the stuff they'll be working on. They're working on budget and getting ready for what we need to be prepared for next year. So I know it's a short period of time, but I know how important that time is to make sure we have the right resources, the right number of teachers, teachers aid, so that our students have the right amount of education and our teachers have the utilities and the things that they need to provide for our students. And those are things that I feel that they have done a great job before and we provided for them. So I want to make sure that we make sure that continues to happen and our students have what they need and the teachers have the resources they need for that, as they've been frustrated with a lot of things going on with how stuff has been. So to be able to make policy and vote on policy to ensure all that stuff happens.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Selectman Post. How about Selectman Stone? You're up.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to, again, thank you for participating in this interview process. And to echo the words of my fellow selectman, Eric Tolley, it takes a bit of courage to put yourself out like this, stepping into the public domain, and we appreciate those efforts. But believe it or not, it can be very rewarding in a strange sense. It's fun to be criticized and second guessed and vilified by the community, but you get used to it. And you just do the job to the best of your ability, and things all work out. What I'd like to talk to you about, analogizing to the Board of Selectmen, we have a relationship with each other. We have a relationship that we have with our town administrator and the administrators that work under him, and we have a relationship with the public. And the school committee is similarly situated. So what I'd like you to tell us what you think your role is as a school committee member, or what it should be, both with respect to your relationship to the superintendent of schools and to the public. And we'll start with Will.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. As it relates to the superintendent, well, literally, one of the school committee's relationships is the oversight, management, and hiring and reevaluating of the superintendent. So that's on one level. On a second level, there is an ongoing working relationship that extends well beyond the actual meetings that are held, but are subcommittee meetings. There are lots of back and forth with the superintendent. And to me, having served on the school building committee for the last 3.5 years, I've been able to forge a pretty healthy relationship with Superintendent Woodbury and Assistant Superintendent Ken Jenks. In terms of our relationship to the public, well, we are a town-wide representative. So there's a couple different phases. One is we have to be listening and we have to be available to the residents of the town of Yarmouth to listen to their concerns and also to understand, are there issues that we're not thinking of or we're not considering? Also, in the other direction, bringing some of these issues to folks to make sure that we're not operating in a vacuum. And that can be a very tricky thing, especially when you're talking on little boxes. And in general, there's an expectation to be available, but as you said, Mr. Stone, you have to do the best you can. And that's what I intend to do.
Tomas.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. I think the most important role is just your partnership with all the people that you discussed, the partnership with the superintendent, the partnership with all the schools, the partnership that we'll have with the town of Dennis, and the partnership with the people. You know, being elected to this position, you'll have a voice, and you have to make sure that voice is of what people are looking for. I am someone that is not going to go on Facebook and complain about what policy has been made in any aspect. I'm someone who's going to send an email to the superintendent, and I have on several occasions, or the principal of the school, and ask the questions. I'm going to go straight to the person and find out the right information and make sure that I reach out to them rather than everyone else. I take the next step, and I'm always available. And whenever I've had issues with anything, I reach out because, you know, I know that they work hard and they have a lot of stuff going on. So I'd rather ask them specifically. And I want to make sure that I'm available so that if there are questions that people have, that, you know, other members or people tonight have discussed about transparency, I think communication is very important, and making sure that that is something that is done, and continue that partnership with everyone. And that's what I've continued to do with all the town administrators I've worked at in both Yarmouth and Dennis, and as well as Hyannis, with, you know, all the different departments that I've worked with.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. You know, over the years, you know, we're 2015 was my last time that I was appointed. I'm several years, several children older now. You learn and you grow as you evolve as a person, and you build relationships. I'm fortunate enough that even though my time ended on the school committee, I was able to build and maintain and have new relationships with many people and stakeholders in our community. I've enjoyed serving in different capacities with members of our school committee, whether it be on PTO or on school councils. I have a wonderfully energetic relationship with Superintendent Woodbury, almost like a love-hate relationship. She knows when I talk to her, she's going to get the truth. And she knows when I talk to her, she's going to get the truth. So sometimes, you know, we're able to have transparent and open communication. And I think even when we don't agree on things, sometimes we have a mutual respect and understanding for each other. And I think over the years, people who may have viewed me as aggressive or perhaps in one specific light have come to know me and come to take time to kind of see how I work and see the, you know, the type of things I stand for and kind of how I operate and engage with people. So I've had opportunities to learn, to get along, learn that there's opportunities to, you know, pick your battles, and some of those battles that, you know, you pick don't have to be made publicly. Some of them do, some of them don't. But I've really learned kind of the finer nuances and how to navigate a little bit more diplomatically in terms of working with others, which has been, you know, great for me both personally and professionally.
Thank you, Zane.
So in relation to the superintendent, there's a relationship with them as a committee itself to go over some overarching policy decisions and direction that we want the district to go. sharing the area emphasis, as well as then letting go and kind of allowing them to do that job and leading the procedure to do it. Personally as well, just along with the superintendent, anybody else is to show them a level of respect, to be honest and clear. And disagreement doesn't mean retreating to your separate camps or being disrespectful or anything in between. Among my fellow committee members, it's to be accountable to them by showing up, doing the work, giving it a full effort. And as well as that is also to push them past sometimes what their limits of comfort are. Not saying that you're looking to be agitating or adversarial, but true compromise. And I think a true collective decision comes from that place where everybody gets a little bit uncomfortable and thinks a little bit beyond where that they may have initially started. And as far as the community, my responsibility would be to be present, open, willing to answer questions and fight for transparency so that they feel that their needs have at least been heard. We are not responsible, or anyone that's elected public office is not responsible for my opinion, your opinion, anyone's opinion, but to take the collective of the voices and try to find what that what that right decision might be, or that best decision, because probably very rarely is there a right decision. So that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, Selectman Forrest, would you like to go next?
Myself here. Thank you. I too want to join with my colleagues on the board to thank you for applying and stepping forward and putting yourselves out there as a candidate for the school committee. And you've done a great job so far. We're going to have a very difficult choice going forward, I would say. And it's great to see such talent before us expressing an interest to serve. So thank you, each and every one of you, for stepping forward. We very much appreciate it. My question centers around the strengths and the weaknesses of the school system. I'd like you to tell me what you think our greatest strength is, and I'd like you to also identify the greatest weakness. And then I would like you to tell us what you would like to see done to address the weakness. So, and I'm going to start with you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. I think one of the strengths and one of the things that we really do well in DY is building community in each of our schools. If you've spent time in any of our schools, you see that each school has its own unique flavor. It has its own unique way it kind of is. And it's been great to see that, when you leave Station Ave, you're like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite school. It's never going to be the same. And then you go to Wixon, you're like, oh my gosh, that's my greatest school. It's never going to be the same. And now we're in Mattakees and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was never going to send my kids here. And now I did. And I can't believe how phenomenal it is. So I think when you look at our district on a building level, the type of relationships that our administration and staff have with students is really incredible. I mean, I've witnessed teachers offering to Uber students lunch during this pandemic. I've had deliveries to our house with last minute supplies that teachers that forgot to run off and we couldn't coordinate. I'm like, 4 kids can't get there. Like, let me drop it off. So it's been amazing to see those relationships and the kids really develop trusting and healthy relationships with the teachers. And some of the new administration that we have in the buildings are just really great. They know how to meet kids where they're at. And they welcome them and they accept them where they're at. They care about the whole child. I think at DY, we take a really good look at the holistic approach of kids. We take a look at what their needs are across the board. And we understand if there's a barrier, for example, at the beginning of the pandemic, internet, that there's people in that building working to get the kids what they need to be successful. So that's a really big strength that I think is unique to our district. The biggest challenge, and I think, I talked about this last time around, is transparency and communication. And I think we've seen an increase, a growth in that direction. We've seen it get better. We've seen some of the schools really take some great initiatives in the sense of over communicating, but it's not consistent across the board, and it's not consistent across from administration. We've done some great things in that area. We now provide translations of different announcements. We provide attachments to the robocall. So we've really made some strides in that area. But as I said in my opening statement, parents need information and education to make informed decisions. So you can't over communicate when it comes to our kids' education, when it comes to things that are going on in the schools, when it comes to partnering with parents, even during the pandemic, more importantly than ever. I think that's an area that can always be improved. And I think with our diversity and inclusion subcommittee, we're going to see some different people pulled into participation, and I'm excited about that and where that's going to go.
Thank you. Zane?
So for me, my real positive for my experience in the Dennis Yarmouth school system is the teachers and the staff. My children have had such fantastic relationships with their teachers that have extended to seeing them out in the community, continued relationships. I had a story this year where my first grader brought his older brother's kindergarten teacher a present because we see her so often around in the community that he liked her and wanted to make sure that she had something the year before when he was in kindergarten as well, even though it wasn't his teacher. I think that is what the real strength of DY is. As far as the weaknesses, as shown by the COVID-19 pandemic, right now in this moment, I think in a lot of ways, the buildings are our biggest flaw, and that's not anything that can be fixed in a moment, but it is something that the pressure needs to be continued to push on, how important it is. Going through the HVAC report and, see how many rooms are really substandard conditions is disheartening, and there's no easy, fast fix to that, but it just needs to be a continued pressure and a step-by-step, one decision at a time, moving forward in a direction to do everything you can to push that sort of thing forward. Also, I think that sometimes my experience with it is it's been shown to be at times a lack of, how to say it, maybe creativity. As we get to a point, it seems to be an echo chamber, which can be a problem for very many, subcommittees, political organizations, whatever it may be. And we really need people that are able to think outside the box and challenge people to look in a different direction. I think that we were a little bit too reactive throughout this pandemic situation. And while there wasn't a right answer, I think we could have done a little bit more to try to meet the students, not in their home, because we're obviously not going to go inside of their home, but what their direct needs were, trying to be a little bit more adaptive. And when we ask people for help, to listen to their help, because I felt throughout this process, whether it's a school committee meeting or those subcommittee meetings, I heard the question a lot, let's open this for public comment. What's your opinion? But I never really felt the action behind actually hearing anyone in active listening, rather than just being in a place like this where you hear it, you write down a note, and then never think about it again. And how that's done is just by continuing to reach out inside the community, being responsive. If you're not doing what you've asked, when you've asked people for help and they don't respond, and you don't do what they asked you to do, which isn't going to happen all the time because not everybody has great ideas, give them an acknowledgement of, hey, we were thinking about it, but this is why we didn't exactly do it. And in addition to that, we did take this into consideration when we thought about that, because the more people that we can get engaged into this process so they don't feel like it's just a waste of their time to go to a school committee meeting, that it's not just a waste of their time to go to their kids' site council meeting, the better off we all are, because that's where that's where our strengths really become something else. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. And Thomas.
Thank you. I think our biggest strength definitely has to be the increased diversity of our students as well as our staff, and the steps that we're taking to ensure inclusion, and make sure that we have all the tools that they need, whether they discussed purchasing of AP books and stuff like that. We're making sure things are available to all students, regardless of their backgrounds or their monetary eligibility. And the weakness, it was talked about by a lot of people, not necessarily the lack of communication, but I think is the timeliness of communication. I think a lot of stuff does come out, but doesn't give parents enough time to plan for it, whether it was the opening or closing of schools or stuff like that. So I think the communication does come out. I just think that it's comes out too late. So whatever can be done to make sure that communication is given to everyone as quick as they can. I know a lot of things go into those decisions and a lot of people are involved in those decisions, but the quicker that we can get that decision, whichever way it would be a lot easier for parents to make those decisions and do what they need to do for the next steps.
Thank you. Mr. Rubenstein.
Thank you, Mr. Forrest. It's hard to go last. I haven't done that yet because we do have a lot of strengths, and I had actually written down here the culture inside each of our schools, and here I am going last. But I do agree with what Michelle said. I have experienced a similar feeling where I felt that Station Avenue is this wonderful place that, you know, takes these little eggs and, you know, helps them grow. And then Wixon does what it does and Mattakese does what it does. I don't have experience in the high school, so I won't claim that I do. But I also have a lot of friends who send their children to Ezra Baker. And if they could take Ezra Baker and put it in some sort of time machine so that they could keep their children in it, they would. So I really am proud, and I am confident that the strength of our schools is each individual school. The leadership within them, the staff who care, and the teachers who enhance every day that our children attend school. But there is also a weakness in our schools. And since we moved here in 2004, Lawrence MacArthur has closed. We are about to build a regional middle school that will then in turn leave 2 significant properties in both of our towns to be considered. So right now, although it might seem strange, our weakness in some ways is our future. And what I mean by that specifically is we are going to build a tremendous intermediate middle school, starting hopefully later this year and over the next 20 months. But the challenges of what that school leaves behind are our biggest weakness. And that means where are our both towns, especially the town of Yarmouth, where are they going to put their attention and their time and their resources into the giant opportunity that sits at the former Mattakese Middle School? And that is directly connected to what I think we can all agree is M.E. Small's need for significant upgrades. In addition to that, there are plans for Station Avenue Elementary School to build some small extension or to increase its capacity in a future where there is no M.E. Small. So our weaknesses are that we have a lot of needs, while at the same time, we have a lot of incredible strengths and a brand new building that we are going to be proud of and that is going to take care of generations of children who are going to grow up here, as well as stabilize job security amongst other things. So I recognize this is a sort of bizarre answer, but I've been workshopping it live, and that's part of the beauty of this process. Specifically, you know, none of those weaknesses are going to get addressed without the ability of whoever you appoint to be able to work, not just with the other 3 folks who represent the town of Yarmouth, but the terrific 3 folks that represent the town of Dennis. And to me, that is what I am going to do and where I plan to spend a lot of my time as we face tremendous, tremendous challenges in the next 2 to 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess, Dan, the
Okay,
next
thank
step
you,
is the
Selectman
closing comments, right?
Forrest.
Or you have questions, excuse me.
No, I actually do have a question, and then we can decide whether or not we want to do another round. But what I would like to ask all of you is, what has been your own experience with public education? And what lessons do you bring to your representation potentially on a school board? And I'd ask Tomas first if you could reply to that.
I've just, my son, as I said, is a first grader at Station Ave Elementary School, so I've just had the year and a half, but going into COVID. But I've had great experiences with the school system and with the superintendent, and as well as the principal at Station Ave. You know, making sure that they notify us, and when I reached out with them, and all of their involvement that they have done to ensure, most importantly now, that my son is safe and the students and staff are safe. I think everything that they've done has shown that. So I've had some great experiences, and friends in the area who had great experiences of kids who have gone through all the different schools and are happy with it. That's why I made Yarmouth my home, and that's why I have my son in the school system here, regardless of school choice, because I want to make sure that he is in a good school system. And I think, as we talked about, as the educators and the faculty that we have, as well as the people that serve our towns, that we have the people that are in place to do that. And I just want to be another person that's in the town to help make sure that happens.
Thank you. I'll recognize Mr. Fitzgerald, please.
And was it our experience with this particular school system, or our experience in our lifetime with public schools?
You can take it either way. Certainly, if you want to look at your own experience and how it informs your representation today, that's fine.
So I grew up first town outside of Boston in Milton, and I went to school, you know, maybe 500 yards from Mattapan Square. As I was looking at the breakdown of the different ethnicities and the diversity inside of Yarmouth, which was a very similar kind of split as it came to percentages and numbers, and through my own experience and sometimes my own lens here in Yarmouth, I don't see, living in Yarmouth Port, I don't see the wide gaps in how certain people are living here inside of our town. My experience from when I grew up is understanding that me and the person sitting next to me have a completely different reality inside of our home, inside of our close immediate family, and where it is that we live. What that has taught me, and what my biggest concern as part of the reopening task force was not for my own children. You know, I've been blessed through privilege and hard work to have a beautiful home, be able to work remotely, have a wife that stays at home and was able to help with the kids. But when I was, I guess you'd say, rabble rousing, for lack of a better term, inside of the reopening task force, it wasn't for me worried about myself or my kids, but worrying about the kids that don't necessarily have a parent that is able to advocate for them in the same way that I am able to advocate for my children. And what I see as my entire purpose here to be part of that is understanding that everybody has such a wide and varied experience, and how we have to work twice as hard for the people that can't necessarily advocate for themselves or tell us that they need help than the people that are in front of us that are necessarily asking for help. And what that means is that chances are, if your parent is part of the PTO, chances are if your parent is part of this, that you have an engaged, active, loving, supportive home, and where a majority of the efforts, not saying that people in those homes don't need their own help, because we all have our own experiences and nobody's life is perfect, is that we need to find a way to meet people where they're at in active outreach. We need to be making plans, not so much thinking about how it's going to affect someone in an inconvenience way, and how it's going to affect somebody in a way where their basic needs aren't going to be met. The Dolphin drive-through was a fantastic success, and I really loved that, and I thought that was a step in the right direction. One of the things I was talking about throughout the process was, you know, as we were identifying these high risk, was potentially coming back as hybrid in the fall, so that what we could ensure is, in case if the numbers got as bad as they did currently get right now at this moment, that we would be able to have a mechanism in place where the kids that truly needed to be in school because they didn't have the support system at home could continue to get the direct one-on-one, hands-on support, while the children that did have a support system were able to, their parents were able to take a larger burden as a larger sense of community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Will?
Thank you. Well, when I heard the question originally, I interpreted it as my own personal experience with public education growing up. So that's how I'm going to respond. I grew up in what I consider to be the greatest city in America, Baltimore, Maryland. And thanks to really, I don't even know, basically thanks to my parents' hard work, to their decision-making that, you know, they could afford a private education, they chose to give me a private education. So I had little to no experience at all with public education until I moved to the town of Yarmouth. And as a matter of fact, I remember when our oldest daughter was growing up, she was born in 2004, that my wife and I, who, by the way, my wife grew up outside of Philadelphia and went public from K to 12. She and I both assumed that we would just send our youngest child to Station Avenue Elementary. But back in 2009, 2010, the talk amongst parents was not so awesome, at least in the people we were talking to as we got to learn the community. And we ended up sending our oldest daughter to a private school for a few years. In fact, she didn't even enter the DY system until 4th grade at Wixon. So I've been able to see both personally as well as here on the Cape that what really matters is not whether you're in a private school or a public school. What really matters is who are the human beings, who are the leaders, and who are the adults and the role models that are in your child's school and in your child's world on a day-to-day basis. And so I can tell you from serving on various committees and having now a second child now in the system and starting a kindergarten, that whatever I thought about the difference between private and public education, the only difference, in my opinion, is the sticker price, because both institutions have incredible people that want to do the right thing for children and for their colleagues. And so to me, you know, as someone who never experienced public education until he moved here, I'm very proud and honored to be considered to be on a school committee for a public school system. And in some ways, I think I missed out. But at the same time, I'm really proud of where the DY system is, even though I know that there are weaknesses I've already mentioned in the future. There is a tremendous opportunity, and I'm excited for what lies ahead. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you, Mr. Rubenstein. Ms. Conover.
So I should be a statistic. My parents were divorced. My mom was a single mom. We were on welfare, Toys for Tots at Christmas, lived over a convenience store growing up, and we went to public school. Public school taught me about leadership. I was a drum major of my high school marching band, award-winning drum major. I played 3 sports. I still have a relationship with my music teacher from 4th grade on. My high school English teacher, I'm in communication with weekly. Public school gave me opportunities I would have never had. I had a full ride, early decision to one school, an all-women's college. It wasn't for me. I ended up going to Bridgewater State where I could be home. And that was because I came from a community that wasn't diverse, and diversity was new to me. But I should have really, when you look at some of these charts and we see where these kids are kind of pigeonholed into who they should be and what they should be, public school gave me opportunities. They gave me friendships. They gave me people that believed in me. And when I look back, people say they wouldn't go back to high school. I'm like, sign me up. You know, I have lifelong friends. My kindergarten, first day of school as a new student, you know, we moved around a lot. I went into kindergarten, I had a strawberry shortcake shirt on. The teacher matched me with another girl who had a strawberry shortcake shirt on. It's 44, I'm 45, we're still best friends. So we had, you know, an opportunity to send our kids to private school. When the kids were little, we thought maybe that's what we'd do. We went to Peter Kroll's office at Station Ave. I still remember it like it was yesterday. Because I wanted to send my kids to public school, but I was scared. I felt like I didn't have much input, that I wouldn't be a welcome stakeholder. He said, sit with me. 3 days later, 3 full days observing at that school, and we never turned back. As a parent, it's the decision I never question if my kids are in the right place. I never question, did I do the right thing? I never question if they're going to have opportunities. And for me, it's really shaped who I am. Lifelong lessons: to be early is to be on time. Anyone that's been in marching band knows that. You're painted with the brush of those you hang around with. Pick your friends, choose your friends wisely. What you put in, you get out of it. Those kind of lessons really shape me. Staff, teachers who took us under their wing, when they knew perhaps, my mom was struggling. But, even though we fell into those demographics, my mom was at every PTO meeting, and she was at every basketball game, and she was at every softball game. So I think it's a little bit unfair to say those parents may not be involved, because I am who I am today because my mom, she was involved and she was always there. And I'm not the statistic because of her commitment to ensuring that we had better, and because the school system really provided opportunities that we wouldn't, have had elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Tomas, I want to give you another shot at that because I really did intend for you to look at your own experience in education and how that might affect your representation on a school committee.
Thank you, Ms. Organ. I went to public school from kindergarten straight through 12. And as I stated, my father was a member of, they call the Board of Education, which is what we consider here the school committee. He was an elected official. So I went through all of the schools, and I myself also have my best friend I met in kindergarten that was still talked to quite frequently, even though he's many miles away, and keep in contact with many teachers and all different levels. But it gave me an understanding of what it means to be an individual, as well as to be, part of a community. Being from a 1 square mile town, we had 2 schools on one side of the tracks, 2 schools on the other side of the track, and the high school in the middle. So I kind of got to understand that. And then, the reason moving to Yarmouth specifically was that whole idea of community. And I loved what I've learned and the people that I've met from moving here over 10 years ago, and the community that it's brought in. And that has continued at Station Ave Elementary with the amazing people that I work with in the PTO, as well as the staff and faculty that I interact with on a daily basis, whether it's drop off or pickup, or it's via email or communication, or it's who join our PTO meetings. So I feel very happy with both of the education in public school I did, and the education my son's getting now.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to seek some input now in terms of whether or not the board feels they have enough information or whether they'd like to do another round of questions. Anybody?
Okay. Let me I'll just poll the board. If you'd like to go another round, just say aye. Tracy? You good? Okay. Eric?
I think I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Mike?
I'll defer to whatever the board wants.
Okay. No, I feel the same way. I think this has been an incredible round of questioning. It's been very impressive. I don't see any need for any more questions either. And so,
Mr. Chairman, I'll turn the meeting over to you then.
Okay, did we agree that we were going to allow each of the candidates to make a closing statement?
Yes.
Give me, that's right. Yes,
Yeah.
That's true.
So
And
what
I'd
I'm
like
going to
to-
do is I'm going to let you invite the candidates. You pick the order for closing statements, and then we'll go to the board deliberating and discussing this and voting.
Okay, so let's try to go in the opposite order that we did the openings, and we'll start with Tomas.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to have this chance. Whether I'm chosen or not, I feel that the other people that are being considered are wonderful people and a great asset to our community. So I'm actually very excited for the possible opportunity, and just wanted to be known that regardless of what is decided tonight, I do plan on running for the position. I have spoke to Mary this morning via email, and she gave me the next steps of what I need to do to run. And that is my plan. Whether I'm elected and get to spend the next 5 months learning the system and then can run and hopefully win the election and continue, that's what I hope. And I'm just very happy to see so many people in the community be interested in this. And I'm happy to also be one of those committee members or town members.
Thank you, sir. And I'll recognize Michelle at this point.
Thank you so much. Great opportunity tonight. Thank you so much for your time. I think we've all agreed that we have short time ahead of us. We have short time between now and the next election, and work needs to be done. The time to onboard, the time to understand how a budget works, the time to understand the processes in which the school committee operates by takes a little bit of time, as Tomas just said, to get it under your feet and to be willing to participate. I think given my experience, given my track record, I think I'd be the right person for now to fill that role. I do look forward to running again. I do plan to run again. I will run again. I've had a lot of support from the community that has been asking me to run again, and I look forward to doing that. But for now, where we have such a limited time to try to, get on, understand the budget, understand the formulas, understand the math, and to know what questions to ask, what to look for, it's a lot, and it's intimidating sometimes to get settled in and be willing to ask questions. And I kind of already have that under my belt, so I look forward to jumping right in. I've been following along in really diving in and getting the work done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And finally, if I could recognize Zane, please.
Thank you. As the other candidates shared, there are 3 other qualified candidates. No matter what, we're going to be in good shape here. I hope for the opportunity to serve the school committee and the town of Yarmouth in this respect. And if it doesn't happen, it isn't meant to be, and there'll be another position going afterwards. I don't say that in a sense of that I don't care or I'm not passionate about it, but just rather that there's a nut for every bolt, and my hope is that I'm the nut for this bolt, and if not, that doesn't preclude my willingness, or it won't change what the future looks like for me. I have in some ways less experience than some of the other people here, but I think I have enough experience to do this effectively. I believe in my ability to work hard. I have no fear to ask the tough questions while still being respectful, and looking forward to a kind of pragmatic approach, looking for, small incremental changes that can over a period of time be built into something larger. I'm not looking to participate to be a seat warmer, and I hope if I'm given the opportunity, I can show you all that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zane. I wish I could make a motion to increase the school committee to 8 members, frankly.
Don't forget Will.
You've all done a fantastic job with Will, I thought I got you. Sorry, sir.
That's okay. We're all human.
Mr. Rubenstein, let's have your final argument.
Thanks. The 5 of you have a hard decision to make. That's what I think. I am very proud of our town right now, and I don't want to let that moment go by, because there are a lot of folks, let's just say, who like me might still have a 4 in front of their age, who sometimes don't think that there are younger people who want to be involved. And this is a tremendous reminder that not just the 4 of us, but there probably are lots of other people that either will see this or are seeing this right now that hopefully will get the point, which is you're either on the stands or you're on the court. And I'm excited that there's at least 4 of us that want to be on the court for the next 5 months. And given my experience with youth development, given my experience in knowing how to balance a budget and never missing a payroll in 17 years, and also running a write-in candidacy in the middle of a pandemic and getting 750 of my fellow citizens and town friends, some of them, most of them, to vote for me, I feel that overall, I'm the strongest candidate to fill this role until the next election. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Dan. I would just want to just check with the board that before we begin deliberations on who we're going to select, are there any other questions or concerns in terms of, or any other information, things that may need to be clarified, or we can just go right into deliberations and making a recommendation and a vote, or nominating and a vote, excuse me. Are we pretty, anything need to be discussed at this point? I think we've had a great opportunity to listen to 4 outstanding candidates. I think we've had an opportunity to hear their vision and hear their ideas and suggestions. I think it's been an incredibly informative night. So I just want to see if there's anything that the board thinks that we need to discuss before we go directly to deliberating and voting on the next, the interim, the next interim school committee member.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say something to the candidates very briefly before we go into deliberations. The dynamics of what is happening here tonight, as I'm sure Will knows and Michelle knows, having run before, is totally different than an election. First of all, an election, you're going to get a greater cross-section of people. You're going to be able to reach out to friends, get help, have promotional literature. They usually have a candidates forum where you get some television time, so to speak. So whoever, you know, there's going to be 3 people that will not be selected. And I want those 3 people to know that you could not get selected now and have a very effective campaign and win the seat in May. So the dynamics are totally different. This is kind of an aberration from what normally happens with elective office. I would, as a public candidate, I'd much rather run to the people at large and let them make a decision about me rather than 5 people in this kind of a forum. So you all did very, very well. You're all really qualified candidates. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen when election time rolls around. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anybody else that would like to say something?
I just want to say that there's no losers here. I mean, it's so heartwarming, really, to hear such wonderful things about our school district, which is such an intricate and important part of our community overall. So there's not one person who is not qualified or who should not have the chance. Unfortunately, there's one spot. So I agree with Will and his comments about the younger people and the younger people looking at this and seeing people step up. I was young when I first started. I had long dark hair and I wasn't having a hot flash taking my jacket off and on, but that's all other
You're
story.
still young, Tracy.
Well, I do still have a 4 in front of my numbers. So, but just to see the effort and the involvement from people and to hear how you all feel about our district, I think that is for no other exercise that we've been through for the public. Our school district at times takes some criticism, and it's so heartwarming to hear all of your positive stories and your wonderful stories about how you've connected to that. And it's like I said, if for no other exercise, having the public who tunes in that may not necessarily tune into a school committee meeting or hear that, you know, they read headlines, unfortunately, and that's really not what we are. This is what we are. These are the people that are in there. And so regardless of who's chosen tonight, we're all winners here. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Eric, would you like to make a comment or say something? Okay, I'm going to come back to Eric. Dan, is there anything that you'd like to say?
Nothing other than I'm extremely grateful, and I think all of these candidates are suitable, and bring their own energy, their own experience, their own ideas that would really benefit our district. I'm encouraged by the fact that they all want to work so hard with Dennis to improve our relationship with them and to increase transparency. So whether or not you are chosen tonight, I do hope that you will consider running in the future. Know that you can talk to any of us who are in elected positions as to how to go about that. I also am the appointments chair, so please, if you want to get more involved with town committees to get a little bit more experience with other sections of town, please get in touch with me, because what I've seen here tonight are people that we want involved with the community and with the decision-making bodies that we have. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Eric, are you there?
I am now.
Okay.
I lost my audio for some reason.
Okay, well, welcome back. You've got the floor if you'd like to make a comment.
You know, again, I just want to close by thanking everybody for their interest and following up on Mike's comments about dynamics. You know, this environment in which we live, this is extremely difficult to hold interviews in this kind of forum. You know, it would be much more preferable if we could do it in person, you know, read body language, that sort of thing. But, you know, things being as they are, we have to deal with, you know, the hand that we're given these days. So again, I just want to thank everybody. This is going to be a very difficult decision, and I appreciate all of you coming forward. Gives me faith that we have good people in town that are willing to donate their time, and look forward to seeing what comes next. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Okay. Now let's move to the deliberation part of this agenda item. Would any board member wish to offer a candidate that we select?
Ooh. This is a tough one and often doesn't go in the direction that I thought it would. I'd like to make the recommendation of Mr. Fitzgerald. Again, nothing absolutely against the rest. I guess my feeling was that a new face would be perhaps, you know, knowing that often many of you are going to be running for the spot. I think the community are familiar with some of the candidates, so that gives you the opportunity already to be known while running for election. But I felt it was important for me when I volunteered to step up that I'd not stay long for the purposes of allowing the public to view who potentially could be a school committee member. But again, there's no particular issue I have with any other candidate. That's just my feeling now for what the district might mean. Thank you.
So you're going to put forward Jane Fitzgerald as the board's nominee, or the board's choice for this vacancy. Is there a second for that nomination?
Mr. Chairman, I have not decided yet on a candidate, but I will second that for sake of discussion.
Okay, so we have a nomination and we have a second. Would any board member like to be heard on the proposal? Dan, Eric? I see Eric is now joined with Tracy, so.
Only because he's broken up. His office is upstairs and he was broken, so he had no choice.
That's great. That's great. So would anybody like to speak to this? And put that on the floor. Otherwise, I'm just going to go for a vote. Dan, are you raising your hand or scratching your head? Okay.
I really liked a lot of Mr. Fitzgerald's responses tonight. He struck me as somebody that doesn't settle for the status quo, and somebody that would ask hard questions. And I like what he said at the end when he talked about not only for himself, but for others. And that's truly the role of the school committee member, is to represent all of the constituents in the community, but particularly those who fall through the cracks or those who don't have the support networks. So I liked much of what Zane had to say. I loved his emphasis on transparency. I think he'd be a wonderful candidate. I just, at this time, when we look at the 4 different candidates that we had before us tonight, I think I was most impressed by Mr. Rubenstein's answers, by his poise, by his understanding of the broader issues. Particularly his passion about working with Dennis. I know he's passionate about working with Yarmouth because he's been on 3 of our biggest committees. And he's done the time and he's put in the effort, and he was passionate enough about the school committee to go through a writing campaign in the midst of COVID, which was beyond any kind of understanding of how that was going to be done. But he pulled the pieces together and somehow managed to accumulate a good following in the town. So I love what Thomas brings, the diversity, the new perspective, and Michelle, of course, hits the ground running, and she has done the work also. So I love all of them, but I think Will was the one that most impressed me as far as being able to start on day one and really be a meaningful representative to Yarmouth on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the motion to select Zane Fitzgerald? It's been seconded for discussion. We've heard from Dan. Eric, would you like to speak to this, or Mike, do you want to speak further to this?
Yeah, I mean, I will make the comment that it doesn't happen often where we are faced with the fact that there is no bad decision here. You know, all of these candidates would be fantastic, and I would vote for any one of them. Having said that, you know, a motion and a second has been made. You know, I'm not inclined to go against the motion, given the fact that we have 4 great candidates. And I feel that, you know, Zane, who has been put forward by Selectman Post, would be a fine candidate. So, you know, I am not inclined to go against that motion. Again, you know, we had the luxury of having, of not being able to make a bad choice here. So that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. I'm going to come back to you, Mike, if there's anything else that you would like to say or comment on.
I agree with Dan's assessment of Will Rubenstein. He's obviously very knowledgeable and handle the questions very, very well. There's something very appealing to me about Zane. I think he's a very mild-mannered, low-key, reflective kind of guy. And I think he has a steadiness about him that I like. And I think he would look at problems very analytically, dispassionately, and try to make decisions that he felt were the right decisions for the kids and for the community. So again, it'd be a coin toss to me between those 2 candidates. I like them both for different reasons. I can't honestly tell you that if the board went with Will, that I would be disappointed. And I can't tell you if the board went with Zane that I'd be disappointed either. I think there's different things that are appealing to me about each candidate, but I there's something about Zane and his demeanor and his reflectiveness that I like.
That's great. That's very good. The only comment that I want to make is I think it's sort of the sentiment of the board is that each candidate brings a lot, brings something special to this, and you know, I like the tenacity of Michelle. I love the freshness of Zane, and I'm so pleased to see Thomas engaged in being considered for this assignment. And obviously I've dealt with Will over the years and I'm very familiar with him and his background. So I can see an argument for each of the candidates. So, once again, I just want to thank everybody for stepping forward.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Tracy.
Point of order?
Yes.
I'd like to offer my resignation.
Okay. Okay. Well, the thing is that, I mean, it is a point of order and it's well worth considering because the appointment that we make does not take effect until Tracy's resignation. So she's offering her resignation. Before I'm going to just sort of table for the moment that the motion on appointing Zane as our representative to the school committee. I'm going to take up a vote on accepting Tracy Post's resignation as our.
Well, Tracy, before you resign, keep in mind there is no recall provision for school committee candidates. So you're in a power position here.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Is there a second there to accept the resignation?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion?
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, just appreciation.
Okay. All those in favor say aye, and it's a roll call vote. Mike Stone.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Eric Tolley.
Aye.
Tracy Post.
Aye.
Mark Forrest votes aye, so it's unanimous. And with gratitude that we accept your resignation.
That one night, whew.
One night of
tough
pain.
one.
Okay, let's as a board go back to the discussion of the nomination. It's been seconded. We've had a fair amount of discussion. I'm going to put this to a vote. Tracy Post, on the motion to appoint Zane Fitzgerald as to the school committee. Aye. Eric Tolley.
Aye.
Mike Stone.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Nay.
Is that an aye?
Nay.
It's a nay. Okay. And Mark Forrest actually votes nay, but Zane, you've got the vote counts are in. It's 3-2. You've been selected. I think I want to congratulate you on behalf of the board. I want to once again thank each of the candidates that have applied for this assignment. You, like I said, you offer a great deal to the town, and much of what you had to say tonight, each of you, was inspiring and very well received. And we look forward to seeing you in the upcoming campaign for school committee. And we look forward to your continued service to the community. You obviously have a lot to offer. So thank you very much. And congratulations, Zane. I don't know if I'm going to give you the floor, Zane, if you'd like to say anything before we move on.
Just thank you very much. And, you know, just like all of you said, I think that we all would have done well with any of the candidates. And I'm totally appreciative of the opportunity, and I won't let anybody down. Won't give it anything but my best effort. So.
All right, Zane, once again, congratulations and thank you. And thanks to the board for a very engaging discussion. So good evening, everyone. Thank you once again. Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda that we have for this evening is, excuse me? Okay. On the agenda, we have an update from the Town Administrator Search Screening Committee and an announcement on the finalists and a date for the interviews. So I'm going to turn this over to Eric Tolley and Mike Stone. Gentlemen, you have the floor. I'll let you decide who's doing the speaking, or maybe you both want to present to the board your recommendations. Mike, Eric?
Whatever Eric wishes.
Yeah, I think Mike and I talked, and we agreed that he would do the talking.
Okay. I like the way he did that. I have to write that down. We have had a good number of resumes, probably in the low 20s, 23, 24. Out of that, we interviewed 5 candidates. One candidate who was very strong withdrew after the interview. There was another candidate who we offered an interview to, and he withdrew his name from consideration. So out of the 4 that remained in contention, we have advanced 3 for your consideration to be interviewed by the full board, and I believe those interviews will occur this coming Saturday. James Creedler of Ashburnham, Massachusetts. Bob Wittenauer Jr. of East Falmouth, and Joe Powers of Harwich. I believe that Eric has forwarded the resumes and the cover letters, and in the cases where candidates submitted also references, whatever materials we received from town council, we through Eric have forwarded to you today. So you'll have an opportunity to look at. We think that we're convinced that we have advanced the best 3 candidates from that pool who remained under consideration. And we feel that each of them is a qualified candidate, and we think that the board is going to have 3 good choices, and you're going to have an experience very similar to what you had tonight with the school committee candidates. I think you're going to have a tough decision to make.
Thank you, Mike. Eric, is there anything that you want to add to that?
No, I think, you know, that again, you know, it's an embarrassment of riches here. It's a little bit different than the experience we had years ago. We had, I don't know, what do you think, Mike? Mid-20s in terms of applications.
Yeah, I'd say 23, 24 in that neighborhood.
Yeah, so there was a lot of interest. And I think, you know, we conducted the 5 interviews, 3 of which will be before you. And, you know, Mike and I, ironically, when Mike and I sifted through all of the resumes, you know, 23, 24-ish, we agreed to pick the 6. I think we came up with 6 total. And of those, we interviewed 5. And, you know, our picks for the interviews were exactly the same. So, you know, I think that speaks volumes about the experience and the qualifications of the 3 finalists that will be put before you. So, you know, we're in a good place. I think that you will all be impressed by the finalists, and we look forward to conducting those interviews.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the other board members if they have any questions of the committee. Tracy, do you have any questions for Mike or Eric?
I don't. I just, I guess we'll get to the point where we talk about the format and timing for Saturday.
Yeah, we'll get there in a second, but let's just focus on the candidates and the process right now. Dan, did you have any questions?
Well, I'm interested in the format also.
Okay, well then let's go directly to the format. First of all, I just want to thank you, Mike and Eric, for all the time that you put into this. I know this was not easy, that you had a lot of other commitments. You're obviously 2 very, very busy people, but for taking the time and the energy and the effort to really help us get to this point. So before we go much further, I don't want that to be left unsaid. With respect to the format and the process, so we have a date. The date is this coming Saturday. That's what's being proposed as the date for interviews. And I think unless anybody has an objection to that, we should continue to move and set that in motion. Hearing no objection, then I'll work on getting that posted and set up. So let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen that day and how what your thoughts are, recommendations with respect to the process for Saturday and how you'd like things to go.
So I think in the past, the process has been very similar to what has happened tonight, with the exception of the fact that the candidates would be interviewed individually rather than in a group setting like tonight. I think Mike and I had anticipated 2-hour time slots with 1.5 hours being allocated for each interview, and then a half hour for a little bit of wiggle room and some run over. In the past, we had done it where we went probably 2 or 3 rounds of questioning. So, between 10 or 15 questions per candidate total. That certainly doesn't have to go that long. But again, I think with 1.5-hour time slots, that will give us room for some more in-depth questioning. So I think that, Mike, you can agree or disagree with me, but that's kind of how we saw it going forward. And so it will be a long day, and, we'll need to discuss on whether or not there'll be deliberation and a decision made that day or at a future meeting. But in the past, the decision has been made at the meeting, at the interview meeting, I believe, in both instances. So those are just my thoughts. Mike, feel free to jump.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with Eric. I will add that when we interviewed these candidates, we allocated about 1.5 hours, and that was a full 1.5 hours of dialogue between us and the respective candidates. And it went by very, very quickly. I think with 5 people interviewing them, it's going to go all of that. And as Eric said, you got to allow for a little run over. So I think his time estimations are pretty good. And we should space them out so that each one of them, it feels like a 2-hour slot. I don't think you really can do right by the candidates to do it with much less. I think the best case scenario, you're probably going to have a candidate in there for 1.5 hours. That's probably the shortest period of time you probably have them. And as Eric said, a little bit of run over. They're all different. They all, some of them speak more rapidly than others. Some speak more slowly. You kind of have to add all those variables in there when you schedule them.
Did you have any? I think, were you thinking about lunch at some point? Some squeezed in?
Well,
there?
that's what we did last time. I will tell you that's the only free lunch I ever got from the town of Yarmouth was when we interviewed last time and Bob Lawton was the head of it, and we all got lunches, which were quite good, by the way, from Piccadilly Deli. And to me, that was a bright moment in the interview process.
I'm going to give the floor to Tracy.
I'm just kidding. But,
yeah, thank you.
But yeah, we did. We ate in the conference room. Obviously with COVID, and that's another thing. We offered, and I just want to address this. We offered each of the candidates a choice with being COVID as it is. Do you want to do the interview live or do you want to do the interviews by Zoom? And they all were insistent that the interviews they did with Eric and me, they wanted to do live. So I think you're going to get the same response. I think they're counting on a live interview, but we could offer them that choice, but I believe they all will want to be present in person.
Tracy?
Well, I feel it's really important to meet them in person. I think we have enough space. This is a little bit different than a typical Board of Selectmen meeting where the public has to be afforded the opportunity to participate in some ways when it's public comment or whatever. So really the public, obviously they could attend, but it's not necessary. They could watch at home. So just having one candidate in the room with us at a time, there's ample room, I believe, for us to space out appropriately and do it. I do think doing it in person is pretty important for this. You have had the opportunity to meet these folks. I have not. So I thought last time the lunch was kind of important because often, you know, when you're in an interview, you're either nervous or it's very, very formal. But having the time, whether it's breakfast, coffee, or lunch, or maybe we schedule something individually. We had our speed dating the last time, which was maybe a little bit more comfortable under COVID because each of one of us can be in a separate room and they can come in with a 6-foot distance and perhaps we just have a conversation while we have a coffee or lunch. But I think that informal time, and it's not a lot of time. I think it was maybe about 15 minutes each.
It was 15, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to be able to say hello, and I liked that. So I'd like to somehow incorporate that if there's a way to do it safely, and that's something that everybody's comfortable with.
Yeah, as I remember, Tracy, we were in the conference room A having lunch, and then one by one, a board member would leave and have their one-on-one with the candidate, and then they would come back, and then somebody else would go, and it was done in a very leisurely way like that.
Yeah, the only thing I'm concerned about is us congregating in the conference room.
Yeah,
So-
well, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to jump. I think the way it was done last time is each of the candidates was in a different room, and the Board of Selectmen kind of rotated from room to room to room.
Is that what happened? Okay.
Yeah. You know, my only hesitation here would be, you know, we have 3 candidates with 2-hour time slots, you know, for each selectman to have 15 minutes of, you know, individual time with each candidate, you know, is going to add, you know, over an hour to the day. Not that I'm opposed to that, you know, I'm just, you know, that those individual times would be over and above the 2-hour time slot. So
one thing we could do, Eric, is you and I could waive the individual time, being that we've met with the candidates.
yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I have to do it. You know, during the interviews, I thought that we had a very free-flowing discussion. You know, I think the Saturday will be the more pointed questions. But I think what you and I did, Mike, was you know, more of a conversation,
yep.
Rather than a hard-hitting interview. So, you know, I would gladly forego, you know, my speed dating slots, and that would, if you did the same, that would knock it down to 45 minutes. So, yeah.
Let's stick
Mike
with the
suggested
speed
if
dating.
Eric and Michael are going to step out, that if we knocked it down to 10 minutes, we'd only be using a half an hour. But I would like the opportunity to speak to the candidates informally. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. And Tracy, you want to do the speed dating thing too?
I hate to use that term, but it felt that way. I know it's not that, and I probably shouldn't joke like that. It's not very professional, but I do think that casual individual time is important. And I'm sure when you're not on TV and you had the interview process, it was more of a free flow. Unfortunately, sometimes when they're, you know, being watched, it's, and these are obviously very professionals that are comfortable with that type of scenario. But I think that is important. And, you know, maybe it's coffee in the morning before we start. I don't know.
Okay, so we have coffee in the morning before we start. Lunch, we'll figure out a lunch.
Everything revolves around food with me, Mark. I don't know if you're picking up on this.
No. I learned from the Coast Guard that the most productive Coast Guard stations in the country are the ones that have the best food. I could never figure out.
This is our one and only chance to score. I mean,
there you go. No, I understand. And I think we'll just make sure that that's done, that arrangements are made so we have some coffee and some light, whether it's donuts or pastries or something to have in the beginning. And then we'll try to make some accommodation for lunch. And it sounds like both Dan and Tracy like the idea of at least creating some space for round robin or / speed dating. So I think we should put that in there. I think that's a consensus. I'm not necessarily, for me, in fact, if I excuse myself from that, I don't see that as a particular problem. It gives more time for Dan and Tracy to make those contacts, which I think is good. So I'm happy to make that work even better and maybe compress the time frame if we set it up where it's done with those two. That's fine. I'm very concerned about the clock and the time, but obviously we want to make this very, very productive. So I think that sounds good.
What time do we start?
Yeah, that's the thing is I think what we should do is work on, I don't know if Mike and Eric, you want to take a stab at a draft schedule. I'll certainly work the logistics side in terms of the food and the refreshments. I'll work with town staff on that. But it might be helpful to figure out a slot where at least you have the timeframes that you've recommended for the interviews. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with the timeframes for the interviews and the structure. I think the question is like I said, we should definitely have round robin time for both Dan and Tracy. So I would definitely recommend that. So I think we're starting at 9 and we're probably ending up sometime around 4 o'clock. I think it's a fairly long day, but I think it's well worth it. And it'll be televised for the public. I think it's best to have people just watch it on TV. And with respect to making the decision that day, my recommendation is that, and this is what I've recommended and done in other towns, is that we do our business on Saturday and then deliberate on the second day after we've had a chance to reflect on the interviews. But obviously, I want to put this up for discussion and hear what people have to say if they feel strongly one way or the other. So is there anyone who thinks that it might be best to have another meeting, maybe the following Tuesday, just a single item agenda meeting where we deliberate and vote on a candidate?
Chairman, my recommendation on that would be to schedule that Tuesday meeting, and then after we see how we do with the candidates, to make the decision at that point in time whether we want to deliberate or go over to the next Tuesday.
Okay, that sounds good. So we can make sure that's posted on the agenda for the meeting on Saturday, but give ourselves the opportunity if we prefer some time.
I mean, if the board, for example, and I'm not suggesting this would happen, but if the board is kind of focused on one candidate, if one candidate clearly emerges, then maybe, a deferred decision would not be in order. Whereas if people needed time to kind of sort things through and think about it, then yeah, we'd go over to the Tuesday. I don't have any strong preference. I just think it may be more suitable to make that determination after we do the interviews.
Okay. Well, I'm just telling you, I'm pretty much locked in on doing it on a separate date. So I'm happy to post that on the agenda and do it, but I have no plans to make a vote on Saturday. Dan, do you have any comments on this topic?
Actually, what I'm hearing, the idea of being flexible suits me. Originally, I was thinking that I too would like a little extra time. It's a very important decision for the town. And I want to make sure that I'll certainly review the paperwork ahead of time, but I'd like at least the option of having some more time to really go through what I heard, what I sensed, possibly talking with some other people, really giving it some time. So I kind of like the idea of going over to Tuesday, unless it's a slam dunk and we're all on the same page.
I hear you. I understand. So I think there's consensus that we should give ourselves time on Saturday. So if there's a very strong sentiment by the board that we should do it, we should take advantage of that opportunity. I'm just being pretty straight in terms of where I'm coming from. I would like to have some time to reflect and think about it.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
yep.
You just said you will not be ready to vote Saturday, and then you followed it up by saying that if there's a strong sentiment that we could vote. So which is it?
Well, I would not vote, my preference would be to hold it off for Tuesday, but I'm not going to be voting for a town administrator candidate on Saturday. So there'll be 4 members of the board possibly voting on it, but I'm not.
So it would have, so.
So it could very well be that we have 4 members of the board that are unanimous. And that carries the day. It's a 4 out of 5 vote for town administrator.
I just don't see how you can just unilaterally say that you're not going to vote.
Well, my strong preference is to have some time to think and reflect.
Well, I'll be ready to vote Saturday. I think we should all be ready to vote Saturday. I don't think it's fair for one selectman to say that I'm not going to vote no matter what. So in the past, we've made the decision right after the interviews. I guess I don't see why we need to change.
No, I understand. I've been just in the other processes that I've been involved in. The vote has always been done on a separate date. So the board members have the opportunity to reflect and to think about their choice. And in those other endeavors that I've been involved in, the board members have welcomed the opportunity to have that time. So I'm just doing that based on my experience, not with Yarmouth, but in other communities, particularly in my last, and that was one of the things that we did in Brewster when I was involved in setting up that search process. That worked out well. And I think the public liked the opportunity to know that as they watched the interviews, if they had some strong feelings or if they they wanted to provide some input, board members, and this is what happened in other towns, is board members heard from people in the community that had strong feelings one way or the other. So it helped in their deliberation. So I understand that. But I also respect the fact that it's uniquely a select board decision. We make this is probably the biggest decision that we make as a board. And I happen to be a little bit more cautious and a little bit more conservative. And sometimes I like at least a couple of days to consider. And so that I'm just being pretty straight with everybody in terms of my views and where I'm coming from. That's all. So Dan, I think we've heard pretty much, I think we have an agreement on the format and our game plan going forward. So is there anything else with respect to the agenda for Saturday that we should discuss?
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
When will we designate the time slots for the 3 candidates and who will inform them of that time slot?
Well, I'm happy to, I think as a board, we'd be happy to delegate that to you and Eric.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we have an understanding. I don't mind doing it with Eric if Eric's willing to. I just don't want to, I don't want to be on the wrong side of anybody on this. I just want to make sure that the board is in agreement as to who's doing what here. That's all.
No, I understand. I understand completely. So
I'll draft a preliminary agenda in the morning and send it to everyone for review.
Great. Thanks.
Okay.
That'd be terrific, Eric. And then I assume between the two of you, you'll inform the candidates of the thing that I think would be helpful maybe to discuss a little bit is if I'm assuming, but it would be helpful to know that both you, Eric, and you, Mike, are in agreement as to who should go first, who should go second, or who to go third. Or I know in some communities, the candidates have been able to pick straws, the finalists, or there's been some other ceremony or something done ahead of time to sort of, flip a coin or to pick straws. So I'll leave the preference in terms of the order. I think it's best just to leave it to you two.
Okay.
To work that out and put that in your draft and then when you notify them, I think our plan needs to be here to have a holding area. So when they come in, there's a clean and safe area that they can go.
I have another question, Mr. Chairman. I think we will all agree that no candidate should have the benefit of having observed the interview of a previous candidate. So how does that work out with our the video that we're going to be having. That's going to be ultimately, is this going to be live streamed,
Yes,
this interview?
that's the plan. Yes, you'll be able to watch it static free on YouTube, or you can watch it
So
with static.
candidate number 3 would be able to watch the other interviews of 1 and 2. Is that correct?
It's conceivable, unless you want them to arrive early and be in a holding area. That might be, or maybe you can come to a gentleman's agreement. That's always a risk. Maybe, you know, yeah, but that's a risk. I don't know if there's any way to prevent that.
Well, you know, I think in your terms, gentlemen's agreement, I think that Mike and I, you know, when we settle on this preliminary, or when we finally settle on the agenda, you know, we should, you know, by Thursday, let each of the candidates know what their time slot is, and express to them that it is our desire that they not go online or on social media and view the other interviews. So, I mean, certainly if you interview first, you're more than welcome to watch the other 2. But if you're second or third, you should not, I would like to have them agree not to watch the interviews that come before them.
So we'll count on you to work that out with the finalists.
Yep, or Mike and I can convey that to the candidates, that is our desire.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think once you're done tomorrow morning, I think that's fantastic. If you can draft something around to circulate with the board that we can work on, that would be great. And I'll make it my commitment to work on the logistics with staff to make sure that whatever's needed is done, and that the place is appropriately set up so that we, you know, the seating, the arrangements.
One other thing, Mr. Chairman, the last time we did this interview, there was some sample questions that we had that were provided to us by staff, not to limit ourselves certainly to those questions, but to have them as an aid. And there was also a list of things that we were prohibited from asking candidates that were provided to us, and I'm assuming they were drafted by legal counsel. Do we have those materials that would be accessible to us? There must be a copy on file in town hall.
Well, you can say that, but I'm not sure that exists. Yeah, I would recommend, I mean, I'm happy to check in with staff at town hall, but I would not count on that. I will say that I did actually find online, I periodically happen to just sort of go looking on Google and online. I found the questions that the board asked of the candidates in 2011.
I actually saw that.
Yeah.
I didn't download it or anything, but I did run
that's a
across that.
searchable document. I found it. If you want to take a look at I'm relying on you and Eric. You've been through this before in this town. You're very familiar with the process from before. I think those questions that were presented were very good questions. And I'm happy to, what I got, send to you and see if you're comfortable.
Why don't you do
working
that?
from
That would be helpful. And
all right.
perhaps we could ask town council to, he must have on file the caveats about what not to ask candidates. I think it would be a good idea to have those before us as a reminder.
Yeah, I think last time, I'm not worried about the questions that you can ask, but I seem to recall that last time there was a very official looking document of subject matter that was not allowed to be brought up and questions that were not allowed to be asked. So, you know, I would be more interested in that than kind of prefab questions that we can ask. So while I'm working on a preliminary agenda, Mike, maybe you could shoot off an email to Jay and ask if there is an official document outlining taboo.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to circulate the town of Yarmouth questions from your 2011 process, which, like I said, I thought they were outstanding questions. So I'll circulate that to everybody. Is that what you'd like? Mike?
Yes, that would be good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll do that. Are there any other loose ends or things that we should discuss with respect to this Saturday?
Just the menu.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is ask for a motion to accept the recommendations from the search screening committee, the town administrator search committee, screening committee, and on the finalists, and a vote on to meet as a board on Saturday to conduct public interviews.
So moved.
Dan moves. Is there a second? I'll second it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Roll call vote. Mike Stone.
Aye.
Tracy Post.
Aye.
Eric Tolley.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Aye.
It's unanimous. That's great. Once again, thank you, gentlemen. The next item on the agenda is for a report from the interim town administrator search committee, appointment discussion and vote. So I'm going to turn this portion of the agenda over to Tracy and to Dan.
Tracy, you want to take it?
Sure. In your packet is an agreement temporarily to appoint Mr. Bob Lawton as the interim town administrator. This would be actually, and I'm not sure how that works with an overlap. I know Dan's on for discussion. Dan Knapik's here, so I don't know if he wants to, I'm not sure how it works for authority purposes, but we thought it was pretty important for the transfer of information for him to have a few days to work with Dan before Dan departs. I know Dan's last day is the 22nd. So this would be effective on January 13th. Now he'd only be working a couple of days a week. I know that as I said before, him and Dan have already spoke. They had a couple of tentative dates already worked out that they could work together. And basically this is a standard palette, so to speak, of Bob. The rate and everything is the same as the last time he was offered his services to us. And if anybody has any questions, I perhaps can answer them.
Very good. Dan, did you want to add anything to your co-chair's report?
No, we had a good conversation with Bob, and we're looking forward to having them come on, and I think we're going to be in really great hands during the interim period.
That's great.
So I'd make a motion that we accept the contract to hire an interim town manager.
And
I'll second that.
Specifically Bob Lawton, correct?
Correct. Yep.
I'll second that.
You'll second that? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? In the second? Hearing none, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Mike Stone.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Eric Tolley.
Aye.
Tracy Post.
Aye.
Mark Forrest votes aye. It's unanimous. Very good. Thank you, interim town administrator search committee. Well done. And the next item on the agenda is a golf fee hearing. And I'm going to ask Kyle to make sure we get in the representatives from golf to make a presentation and to make sure that we get some material on the screen that we can look at regarding the proposal that was posted in the newspaper. Now, I think, Tracy, just procedurally, we have to read into the hearing the legal notice. Is that your understanding as well? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself?
I said that's correct if it's a hearing, but I don't see it in the packet.
Neither do I. So, Scott, do you have the hearing notice?
I have it. I have the legal notice that we posted in the paper.
Okay. Yeah, what I'm going to ask you to do for the purposes of the public hearing is I'm going to call on you to read into the record the public notice. That's great. You've got it up on the screen. Why don't you read that into the record?
I'm wrong. We do have it in our packet. It's just.
You have it?
Yeah.
Tracy, would you mind reading it into the record then? I'm going to come back to you. I think someone from the board should do that. I don't have it for some reason.
Yeah, it's in there. It's just, it's not in the, typically it's in the beginning, but a fee hearing will be held by the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, January 12th and Tuesday, January 26th at 6 p.m. at the Yarmouth Town Hall, 1146 South Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. For 2020 proposed annual golf fees, written comments will be accepted at selectmen@yarmouth.ma.us until January 25th. Verbal comments will be accepted at the hearing. The Board of Selectmen meeting will begin at 6 p.m. So for under community services golf annual fees, it's not listed current and proposed, but I'm going to assume that this is how it is. Annual pass currently is $11.50 and it's proposed to be $1,200. Senior annual pass is now $725 and it's proposed to be $760. The Lynx annual pass is currently $315 and is proposed at $330. The under 35 annual pass is currently $725, proposed to be $760. The young adult annual pass, which is under 23, is $310, proposed to be $325. The junior annual pass, which is under 19 years of age, is currently $105 and will be $110. And the daily fees are as follows. Green fees currently $100.80. Now these are up to fees that can be set by the golf director. $100.80 currently, proposed to be $105.84. Golf car, is it golf car or golf cart? Golf
Either
cart.
way.
Okay. 18 holes for a pass holder is currently $14.70, proposed to be $18. Golf cart for 9 holes for a pass holder is now $8.93, proposed to be $10. The golf cart 18 holes for a non-pass holder is currently $23.10, proposed to be $24.25. The golf cart for 9 holes for a non-pass holder is currently $15.23, proposed to be $16. Range fees for a small bucket, I believe, is $7.35, proposed to be $7.71. Medium range fee, $10.50, currently proposed to be $11. A large range fee is $12.60 now, proposed to be $13.23. A club rental for 9 holes is currently $28.85, proposed to be $30.29. Club rental for 18 holes is currently $46.20, proposed to be $48.51. And a premium set is $71.40, currently proposed to be $74.97. And the handicap maintenance fee would go from $52.50 currently to $55.
Right. Very good. I'm going to turn this portion of the meeting over to Scott Gilmore, golf director. The floor is yours to explain the rationale behind the fee structure that's being proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The rationale, we had numerous meetings with the Golf Enterprise Committee this fall when things settled down a little bit to discuss 2021 fees. And after numerous meetings, we all came to the consensus that greater support is needed from the membership to continue. In the PowerPoint I provided, you can see that a lot of the membership numbers, we lost a significant amount of the annual pass and picked up a lot of the Lynx pass holders. We went from 635 one year to from 2019 to 507 in 2020. And then in the Lynx, we went from 56 to 113. So there's a lot of going down to the more affordable rates, if you will, from our membership. And I'm sure you guys remember from early on when we had a lot of difficulty with daily fee and membership. It's more of trying to get the membership to take ownership of the course and to really help out with this dynamic where we're a lot relying on daily fee. is not as much as membership. We're about 70-30 daily fee to membership. So that's pretty much where the fee increase comes from. And as stated from National Golf, when we had them, it's the expenses are pretty much the same every year, right around the 3.5 million mark. And it was always kind of a revenue problem, but we had a good year last year with COVID, and we expect something very similar to in 2021, very busy golf course, as things are still very restricted, but at some point we will go back more to a normal scenario. But based on the meetings we had with the GUC, it is definitely recommended to go up the 5%.
Very good. Does that conclude your presentation, Scott?
Pretty much, because Tracy had just read all the fees in there. That was pretty much all that it was.
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do is ask the board members before we go to the public and see if you have any public comments. Open it up to the board. Mike, do you have any questions? Again, this is the first of 2 public hearings, correct, Scott?
Yes, there's another one on the 26th.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll save most of my comments until the second hearing, but I just think it's kind of a peculiar time of year to have a fee hearing when many people aren't around anymore and nobody's golfing. It's in the dead of winter. And the other thing is with some of these changes, so much 86 cents. I mean, really, do we want people making that kind of change, or should we be rounding this stuff off to the whole dollar? I mean, how administratively are we going to be, change making with this kind of, why are we nickel and diming on some of these fees?
The ones on the daily fees that you're talking about, that is just the standard 5% that we try to go up every year. We actually don't charge most of those fees. We do round up or round down to a normal number, if you will. Right now we charge $89 at Bass River with a cart and $105 at Bayberry with a cart. So though we do round and make it a normal number. Those are just placeholders, if you will, if we're extremely busy on a busy holiday weekend, that we have the ability to go up to a certain level if we saw the demand was there.
That's all for right now. Thank you.
Interesting. Tracy, do you have any comments, questions?
I noticed in the memo it talked about they had legal opinion on the over 5%. That's the first time I've heard that. We've always had a strict rule that the fees were limited to 5%, and that was based on a town meeting vote. And are you saying now it's only related to the annual pass? Because some of these went up 5%.
Yeah, the only one that is not going up 5% is the proposed is the member cart fee, if you will. And we did go in front of town council to get legal opinion on it. It was their recommendation, if you will, that the 5% only applied to the membership.
Well, I'd like to see that article that we've stuck to that for very many years. That has always been our policy, and that's the first time I've heard that it's only related to the annual pass. But I don't think we should talk about fees without talking about revenue and where we're at this year, how we're closing, the need for the increase. And I thought we were in a pretty good position. So
we are financially, we made a little over $300,000 in 2020 season. We're doing very strong in this season, if you will. We're up roughly $850,000 over last year's pace. The dynamic that is there is it's heavily daily fee, and that's what we rely on. But we have this membership that wants to play all the time that we somehow have to shut them out sometimes because we need to come up with the money somehow, some way. So we rely on the daily fee a lot.
But you're saying this little bit of fee difference is going to make the difference if they're going to be able to play more. It seems like if they're getting shut out, perhaps we shouldn't be raising their fees if they're not able to play as much. I'm just trying to talk it out.
Yeah, we're not,
They've heard from a lot of golfers this year that they weren't able to play.
right,
So
and that's why we're suggesting is they're not able to play as much because the fees is quite low for 45 holes, and we do have to come up with a revenue some way, shape, or form. We don't get any taxpayer funding, if you will, every year, so we're strictly relying on what we can bring in, and if we can sell out the day, we have to sell it out to make ends meet. So we're trying to come up with a better formula that works for everybody. I think Ellen's on this call too. She can chime in if she wants. But we did go back and forth numerous times with the committee, and they were all in favor that we do need to do something to get the membership to see some ownership in it.
Well, and I think there's also the point that the revenues, and we hope they will continue to grow, and that this year we will have another good year. But we obviously cannot go to the town at this time for money. We are an enterprise committee, and we have multiple capital projects that are going to need some funding. And so we've got to continue to watch our revenues in order to be able to handle ongoing capital projects. And the GEC right now is working on a list of short-term and long-term capital and funding improvements that are going to need to be done to maintain the golf courses as they are.
the town doesn't already have that completed in a capital plan?
Right now, the one we just got approved for $50,000 for the roof that needs to be done at Bayberry. We will be putting together a scope of services for the rest of the building that needs to be had work on, as well as the cart barn. That all needs to be done. Hopefully we'll do fall town meeting for all that funding. But there's also unanswered questions on what's happening with the links course. I saw, there's a solar one that has tremendous needs through bunkers, irrigation, things have just been left forgotten for a while, and then they do need upkeep and capital improvements as well. And then there's always Bass River, where we haven't really planned on anything because of the DHY situation there. That has tremendous needs that we just kind of put on hold right now. So there is a huge list of capital that does need to be put in at some point.
Okay, well, I'd really like to see the article and the opinion about the over 5%. I'm very uncomfortable because the last time even we went over the 5%, we had to go to town meeting for that to get an exemption. So those are my thoughts for now. I'm interested to hear from the public.
Okay, do any other board members have questions before we go to the public? Dan, do you have a question? Yes, go ahead.
Obviously, this is just the first run through. I must say I'm a little uncomfortable with this idea of fees not being certain. I understand not nickel and diming and needing to round up or round down, but I believe they should be certain. I don't think it should be discretionary on staff, depending on how busy you are in terms of how much you're charging people to golf. Fees are there for a reason. I liked what you said about trying to get the town members to own more of the course, because we're fortunate this year. We had a boon year in golf, and maybe we'll be fortunate next year and have another really good year. But God knows we've had a couple of really bad years, and we've recognized that golf has been saturated on the Cape, and that it's difficult, particularly in Yarmouth, when you're trying to maintain 2.5 golf courses with fee members and daily players at the same time. And it brings up the situation that you talk about of trying to balance the two and get enough revenue. I was surprised that on the town players, you said you were going up 5%, but it wasn't actually a full 5%. You actually were a little bit less, maybe 750 below that. And I don't know why you would round down. You need to be in at least in my opinion, you need to be in a position of generating as much income as you possibly can. And every time you round down, now next year, if we do 3 or 4 or 5%, it's accumulated and aggregated on top of one another. So I don't understand not fully accepting a 5% rather than knocking it down, especially when you have these capital costs that you're talking about. The other fees, they seem to be in line. They seem to be competitive. That makes sense to me. But I guess I'm really concerned down the line about how we are going to continue to support 2.5 golf courses, and how with Bass River, you know, if the membership truly wants that really nice clubhouse, which I think would be great for the town. I'd love to see our restaurants filled. I'd love to see our hotel rooms filled. But in order for something like that to happen, it's going to take ownership by the golfers who live in town. And so I don't know why we're hedging our bets there. I really think that, you know, we need to convince our town players that if this is what you want, you really have to commit to it. You know, especially if you're going to be looking for town help to help subsidize some of that. But like I say, I'm uncomfortable with uncertain fees, and I'm particularly uncomfortable with not utilizing the 5% when we can, so that we're generating as much income as we can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Eric, did you have a question, comment?
So, you know, 2 comments. I tried hard not to play golf in Yarmouth while I was a selectman, and I made it 11 years. And in my 12th year, I folded. So the biggest complaint I heard of being at the golf course is that it was very expensive comparatively, and it's going to be more expensive. 105 in green fees and 20 something on a golf cart. You know, a round of golf is going to be $130. You know, I'd like to hear how we compare to other similar facilities with that fee structure. And you know, my other comment, and I don't really know how to resolve this, but you know, I'll channel Norm here a little bit and say, you know, he always made the comment that you couldn't sustain operations based on fee increases alone. Now, you know, I understand what he meant all those times that he said that, but you know, I honestly don't know. You know, the courses were so busy this year, and I think that we had a unique situation. I don't know how you would, you know, promote the courses and be able to fit more golfers on the golf course. Obviously, if you could, more golfers mean more revenue, but I just don't think you had the ability to accommodate more golfers. So, you know, here we are again with, you know, sustaining operations based solely on fee increases. So again, I don't really know where I'm going with this point. I just know that the 2 ideas are conflicting, you know, not wanting to increase the rates and also realizing the limited ability to get more bodies on the golf course. So maybe you can speak to the rate comparison with other towns or other facilities, Scott.
Sure. For daily fee, it's so Bass River is $89 Friday, Saturday, Sunday with a cart. That's what we charge. That's what we're planning on charging again this year. We don't plan on going up on daily fee. The increases you see in front of you is literally those major weekends that come through, like July 4th, but we didn't even increase this year. So it's more as a just to have it in our back pocket, if you will. Babe rate is 105, all included with the cart for the daily fee players, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now we go down during the week a little bit, cut a little bit. We also go down a little bit on time differences as well throughout the day. But we are very comparable to the other towns. I think Barnesville is at like $98 or $96. Dennis is similar to that. So we're all right in the same realm, if you will, of each each of us charging right around the same numbers. But we actually don't plan on going any up in the daily fee. We are more on the understanding that we want to go up with a membership, because as we all experienced early on in the spring when we were very limited, they all wanted to play, but we still had money that we had to meet, and we have to meet our obligation to pay for the operation. So this is kind of like anything we can do to help bring in more revenue with a membership, we can maybe be less reliant on the daily fee.
If I could just make a point, Eric, maybe we also have the opportunity at the second hearing, if we need more information or want a more detailed explanation, or maybe to give Scott and the committee time to maybe provide some additional information on these key questions that are getting asked tonight. I think everyone's asking very, very good questions about when you publicize a fee structure, just the legality of having that kind of flexibility. We can provide an answer to that question. Tracy asked a very good question. You're asking excellent questions. I think that's what you're hearing from the board. We've got another bite at this apple. I think there's the opportunity, rather than to hash this all tonight, we can invite them to make sure that at their second presentation, that this kind of information is part of the presentation. So we have a crack at trying to get some better, maybe some more informed, more thorough answers on this. So I'll just put that out there. Maybe that's a way to get through this for tonight.
Yeah, I think for the next, I'd like to see some revenue projections based on this year. Let's assume that we're in a similar situation next summer as we were this summer. I'd like to see revenue projections based on the membership increases, and I would like to see less increase. I've never liked this flexibility of being able to set the daily rate based on how you feel when you wake up in the morning. I know it's not that simple, but I'm oversimplifying for the sake of being able to make my point. I think I would like to see what it looks like where we do not increase the daily fees and just leave the increase to the membership. And the reason I say that is because, you may only have one chance to get that daily greens fee person. And if it's too high, they may never come back. Whereas, a member who is paying $1,200 and is going to play 100 times a year is paying $12 a round. And I think that we could all agree that that's a pretty good deal. Whether or not you can get your favorite tee time, $12 is a pretty inexpensive round of golf. So I'd like to see some revenue projections based on, the modest increase to the membership, and perhaps leaving the daily greens fee alone, and see what those numbers look like based on, this year's, I'm sure you catalog how many golfers, you put through on an annual basis, how many greens fee payers that you put through on an annual basis. Let's base it on last year and see what those numbers look like, because I'm afraid we're going to price ourselves out. That's the biggest complaint I hear about Yarmouth Golf, is the cost.
But may I ask, do you think that's in relationship to every other course? Because I think that the fees are about the same, especially on the weekends.
I think that when a father wants to take his son golfing on a Sunday one time a year, that $250 to take my son golfing is too much money. And I think that's going to turn people away. And that is specifically one of the biggest complaints that I heard this year. $250 for two people to play golf is a lot. And the person that I heard that comment finished the comment by saying that he was never going to golf in Yarmouth again. So whether the difference between communities is $10 a person, that's $20 for two. And if I can go to another course and pay $20 less, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Chairman?
Dan, would you like to ask a
Okay.
question?
Scott, could I just ask a quick question? Do we have anything such as a 10 play or a 20 play card that would address Eric's concern?
We have a 5-play card is the only thing we have now. We used to do all that in the past. That we all had recommendations with both consultants to get rid of the resident cards to play.
What's the cost of that?
The 5-play, it was $75 per time, so it's $350.
Okay.
Mike, did you have any comments, or can we go to the public?
I would like to see some comparative data on what other courses are charging to the extent that they match up with the proposed fee increases. And I would like to also see the town vote and the materials that Tracy referred to. So those are my comments thus far. Like I said, most of them I'll reserve till the second hearing, but I'm in concurrence with more or less the comments that Tracy's made and that Eric has made.
Yeah, and before we go to the public, I would agree as well. So I think these are some items to be thinking about for our next hearing on this. And so we'll leave you with that, Scott. And now let's take this part of the agenda to open it up to the public. And I see Mr. Joe Glenn. Kyle, could you give the floor to Mr. Glenn?
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great job tonight. I know it's long for you. I just have a couple questions. I agree with Selectman Tolley and about the projections. And I think that there's kind of a unique situation this year, and I think it's going to benefit. I think that, Eric has been around a long time and been a golfer, and you see a lot of different type of situations. And I think this year may be a great benefit for us. There's just not a lot of other activities. And so I think normally where we might just look at the daily fee versus the membership, I think there's kind of like a three-way tier here. That there's the resident that, like he just like Selectman Tolley said, the resident that might want to go out once a year with their son or father or that situation, and it becomes costly for that one time. And then there's the members who want to join for the year. But if you take, for example, if that son is under 23 and they're going to only pay $300 for the year, well, that father and son, if he's a member and he's getting that great deal, they might be able to get out a few more times. But I understand what Eric is saying, that maybe they don't, and that's their preference. But then there's the foursome tourists that come down, and do they decide to go to Barnstable for $6 difference? No, I think it has to do with the tee times. And so that supply and demand conversation that you guys can have for the second meeting is to look at that, and those projections that Eric asked for will make a big difference. But you got to weigh all three of those things. The uniqueness of the situation where there's not a lot of activities in the COVID world, and if we're still there, we can benefit. So I've been in agreement that flexibility shouldn't have been the case in the past, but I think this year, if you got somebody that's willing to pay because they can't get on July 4th somewhere else, that makes the overall revenues better, so that when the people at the golf course can up that fee for that day, that helps the members, and it helps those residents on those other off time periods that, maybe a weekday that father and son can go out. But the other thing that I want to remind you guys are that we had said when we were talking about the DHY that there's a lot of cooperation going on, and you know, I had kind of referenced it, you know, let's make sure of that, and there's good faith. Well, if there's good faith with Dennis, then let's make those dentist rate comparisons. They have a bunch of different packages than we do. They even have a non-resident rate that, you know, so the people at Dennis can come over here, and people in Barnstable might, you know, enjoy. You know, everybody is bragging about one thing: the course conditions at Bayberry. My son's played. Every person that I talked to bragged about how great the course was going. That can't hurt, especially with the tourist people and the other people coming down. And then you have to compare it. But if we can look at all that stuff for your next hearing, that would be great. And the only last question I have that you could probably answer today: what are the annual dates? If somebody was a member last year, did their membership run out in January? And if someone comes up to the golf course tomorrow, do they get the yearly rate for this year? And then when it changes, what happens? So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll listen if there's a response to that. But other than that, great job tonight.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to give you, Scott, a chance to answer that question in terms of just to clarify the time period that these new rates apply to.
Yeah, so we don't really like that January, December. So we switched it to like other golf courses, and it's now April 1 starts to March 31st. So every 2020 pass has been extended all the way to March 31st. So anyone that has a membership right now can play all the way to the 31st before 2021 are due at that point. As far as someone that wanted to join right now, that's the only thing they would have to pay a daily fee until the formal fees are set at the 2021 rate.
Very good. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public that seeks to be recognized or would like to speak to the proposal before the board? Okay, I don't see anybody seeking recognition. So I think at this point we can end this agenda item and then move on to the next one. I don't believe, I'm gonna just seek counsel from the board. I don't think we have to
continue it.
You have to continue the hearing. So there's no need to vote on that, or is it just we're going to continue, just an announcement that we're going to continue the hearing to the 26th?
January 26th.
Okay, so just for the public to know, the second crack at this, the second public hearing will be at the Yarmouth board meeting on the 26th of January. So very good. Next item on this for tonight is board and committee actions. I'm going to ask Mr. Horgan if he has any committee appointments to recommend tonight.
I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I'd ask for a motion to accept with appreciation and regret the stepping down of Will Rubenstein from the Library Planning Committee. He wishes to step down immediately to pursue other things that are going on in his life right now. So I'd ask for a motion to accept with appreciation.
Eric, if you're seconding, can you just unmute yourself?
Sure, I'll second it.
There you go. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, roll call vote, say aye. Eric Tolley.
Aye.
Tracy Post.
Aye.
Mike Stone.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Mark Forrest says aye. Motion carries. Next item.
Thank you. I'd ask for a motion to reappoint Nate Small as the Community Housing Committee's representative to the CPC. This appointment is a 3-year term and will run through July 2020. Actually, I believe that's a mistake, Mr. Chairman. I think it would run to today's date, wouldn't it? 2024 from today.
I would believe so. Typically, our committees run 3-year terms. This is a 3.5-year proposal. So if you want to make an amendment right now to make that January 2024, I will move that.
Second.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second on Mr. Small. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Roll call vote. Tracy Post.
Aye.
Eric Tolley.
Aye.
Mike Stone.
Aye.
Dan Horgan,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would make a motion to reappoint Mr. Nate Small and Mr. Carroll to the Community Housing Committee. These terms are for 3 years and will run through, again, amending the date to January 2023. Do you want to handle these separately or together?
Go down the list. We might as well do them all at once.
I'd also ask for a recommendation to reappoint Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Sullivan to the Community Housing Committee. These terms will run for 2 years and will run through January 2022. I'd ask for a recommendation to reappoint Ms. Doyle to the Community Housing Committee for a 1-year term, which will run through January 2021. And to reappoint Mr. Goodwin, the Planning Board's representative, as an alternative member to the Community Housing Committee. This is for a 1-year term, which will run again through January 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
All
I've got
those
a
in
motion.
favor?
Second, any discussion?
I have a
Hearing none.
question.
Yes, Mike.
He said he's making these appointments through January of 2021.
Yeah,
We're
Oh,
in
wait a
January
minute.
of
No, that can't be right.
2021.
these dates are wrong. So
I removed my movement then.
Yeah,
Thank you.
let's
All
just
right.
spend a minute here to clarify this. The
You mean
one,
you'll make the
So-
appointment through January of 2022?
So let me do this again. To reappoint Mr. Small and Mr. Carroll to the Community Housing Committee, the terms are for 3 years and will run through January 2024. To reappoint Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Sullivan to Community Housing Committee to run through October 2023. To reappoint Ms. Doyle to the Community Housing Committee for a 1-year term to run through January of 2022, and to reappoint Mr. Goodwin to the Planning Board Representative as an alternate member to the Community Housing Committee. This is for a 1-year term, which will run through January 2022.
So moved.
Second.
I do have a question though,
Go ahead.
about Dolores. It says that she's part-time. Is that the next appointment? Oh, I'll
That's
wait.
the next one.
Okay. Sorry.
yeah. I think, I mean, I hate to say this, but there's so much confusion over these dates.
I know it. I
Um,
didn't pick it up on the first draft.
Yeah, and I would recommend that these dates typically follow specific periods that I'd be reluctant to, I'm going to, with all due respect, I'm going to speak against the motion only because I think I'd recommend withdrawing this and bring it up at our next meeting, because I do think we want to be careful about messing around with all of these dates. There may be, they may follow a very specific time period. And I'm just uncomfortable voting on it with making a change like at the last minute here.
I agree. I'm happy to pull it back and get it clarified for the next meeting.
Is the board comfortable with holding it up and getting some more due diligence on this so that we come back with information that we're more confident in?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next, please.
Are you okay with that, Tracy and Eric? Okay.
We go down to the next page,
Yeah,
please.
let's move. I'm going to skip over that. Let's move on to the next one.
All right, this is for a recommendation to appoint Ms. Bogdanian as an alternate member to the Recycling and Solid Waste Advisory Committee. The appointment is for a 1-year term and will run through February 2022. I have a caveat with this, Mr. Chairman. I understand that it's general rule not to appoint somebody who's living in town part-time. This woman's qualifications are extraordinary, and she has sought out the committee chair and other members and has a vast store of experience with these topics and a passion for such, that I thought it might be appropriate to appoint her as an alternate member. But I did want to make it known that although she's spending more time here on the Cape than before, she still is considered a part-time resident.
Dan, as an alternate for 1 year, I don't think it's a problem. I think we need to really be cognizant of that for board members that, are often absent, especially in some of our boards that put them in a difficult position. But in this case, they're not, this board particularly, is not, being an alternate for 1 year is not an issue to me, but I just think we need to continue to pay attention to that, because in the past, we've had some real problems with attendance.
Okay, and I understand that, and that's why I structured it as an alternate.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I would question whether or not we are able to do this. This has come up in the past, and it is my recollection that non-residents or non-full-time residents were only able to be appointed to ad hoc committees. So I think we need to answer the question of whether or not this is even allowed first, because I'm not sure that it is. I don't recall ever having done this before.
Okay. Well, hearing that, I'd like to recommend, Dan, we do some more due diligence on this one and come back to the board if you're ready at our next meeting. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody have an objection to that? Okay, very good. Let's move on to the next item.
Looking for a recommendation to appoint, and this is really just informational. We don't really have the appointing authority. I just put it on for informational purposes. Mr. Goodwin is being appointed as the planning board's rep to the Affordable Housing Trust. You'll see it in the minutes earlier, the consent agenda. The appointment is for a 2-year term and will run through January 2023.
Well, let me just add that in the past, we've actually voted these in the past. So I think we should just keep with tradition.
We actually have, the tradition was only recent. We never voted to appoint planning board members to subcommittees. To my knowledge, for many, many years. It was only recently we did it once or twice, but those appointments change, and it's their prerogative to appoint who they want to, or based on their time. There's a lot of commitments for the planning board, and there's a lot of committees they have to cover. And it was never something that went to the selectmen in all my years sitting on the planning board before.
Yeah. Well, during my tenure on the board handling appointments, we had several of these come up in the past and were voted on by the board, because I think the board is the appointing authority. Others recommend, but let's pull this one back and do some more due diligence on this one too, Dan. Just double check that, okay?
Yeah, you're killing me. All right.
Sorry. But, I told you this is a tough board when it comes to appointments.
No, we're not tough.
Yeah, I think we're thorough. We want to make sure that, these questions are answered. I think we're doing our due diligence. Do you have anybody else, Dan?
Oh, there is.
No.
You've got one left, Dan, if you dare.
And again, this is much like the previous one. It's more informational in nature to acknowledge that Mr. Gardner's appointment as a finance committee rep to the personnel board. It's for a 1-year term running through January 2022. When I spoke with Pam Barnes, she indicated to me that this and the prior appointment were not necessarily selectmen appointments. And I said, just include them for informational purposes so that people were aware.
Okay. Well, if you could double check on this one too, that would be helpful. I don't recall the select board appointing members to the personnel board. Although I can understand why in some cases it might come up, because in many communities, the select board appoints most of committees like this. I know in other communities, the select board appoints the personnel board, but I think Pam's got it right. So
The
just double
civilian
check that.
members.
What's
But
that?
The finance committee member is usually appointed by FinCom.
Yeah. Yeah, but what I'm saying is the personnel board sometimes will have individual members appointed by different committees. They make the appointment. Sometimes committees recommend to the board that they appoint. So all I'm suggesting is to follow up on what's been said before. It's just, I think this one is just double check it. And if it's done as an FYI, that's fine too. Then you don't have to bring it back.
Okay. Is that it?
That is it. Okay. Do we have approval of the April 2nd and the April 14th, 2020 minutes? So let's start with the April 2nd, 2020 Board of Selectmen minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Roll call vote. Tracy Post.
Aye.
Eric Kelly.
Abstain.
Mike Stone.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Abstain.
Mark Forrest votes aye. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes for April 14th, 2020?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Roll call vote. Tracy Post.
Aye.
Eric Tolley.
Abstain.
Mike Stone.
Aye.
Dan Horgan. Dan Horgan. Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, Mark Forrest votes aye. So those are the two items. With respect to upcoming agenda review, let's sort of pull up. We do have on our agenda for upcoming the 26th. If we look at that, we have the close of the annual town meeting warrant. We have Bridgewater State University, their presentation, and I forwarded you some information that came addressed to the board. We have the Barnstable Airport Master Plan update. We have
Chairman,
the
on
second.
that,
Yes.
could I, Mike, with your permission, could I ask that we maybe step that back into February? I'd like to talk more with the representative, Bill Marasco, Dr. Marasco, and try to get a better handle in terms of what's been done in the past and what direction we might want to recommend to the whole board. Mike,
So
do you have any concerns or issues with that?
this was put on as something to do, but I don't think from, at least I'm not sure the board has really had much discussion about this agenda item in terms of,
Right.
we do know that we've heard from a lot of people who are very concerned about what's going on, obviously. And I think having some public presentation for the benefit of the public would certainly warrant it. But let me ask the board members if there's any objection to putting this off from January 26th and put this off into February. Is there anybody that has an issue or concern about doing that? Eric? No. Tracy? No. So let's do that. Let's strike that from this. And obviously we have the second public hearing. Is there anything here that we should add to this agenda? Okay, then we'll go with this. The one item that I'd like to at least put out there is there are a lot of calls regarding COVID and vaccinations. I getting a lot of calls. I know other people are. I do think there's some value in having COVID as a reoccurring item, particularly as it relates to getting information out to the community as to when people in the various phases are going to get vaccinated and where they can get vaccinations, because there's just a lot of confusion out there. That's what I've been hearing. And I've heard from a lot of Yarmouth residents. So I do think there's some value in bringing that up and getting updated periodically on that. If there is any other aspect of this that people would like to discuss, I think, we should, I'm just going to open it up. I mean, if there are any thoughts about COVID and what we cover. Any other board members want to jump in here? I do know that there's some interest by staff in expanding awareness of the financial assistance that the town does have available or can direct to people, particularly individuals and businesses. And apparently some of the resources that we can tap into have not been really fully accessed. So there may be some benefit for the board to get briefed on what those resources are and at least get some public discussion and attention as to how well that's going, and maybe public awareness of what these resources are to help people out. So that's come up.
I think at some level, whether it be at the town level or the county level, there's got to be some central information center for people to be able to contact to know where they fit in terms of the priority for COVID vaccinations. You saw it tonight, for example, and not to be critical of anybody, but there was a presentation made with a earlier scheduling that did nothing but create additional conflict as to whether people 65 or older were in the second phase or not. My understanding is right now they are not. So you got large numbers of people that are chomping at the bit to find out where they fit in. And confusion is going to put more demands on town staff, county staff for calls, for inquiries and things like that. So there's got to be some clearinghouse for information that's accurate and up to date.
I would agree. And I can just say from one of the other jobs that I have is that the county's setting up an 800 number and revamping its website to help with that. And seeing if there's some way there can be an online registration system. But you're right, there's a lot of frustration. It's not well organized. And I think to some degree, there's a benefit, even to the extent that there's new information, new developments that can help assure people that their time in line is getting shorter, I think would benefit Yarmouth residents, particularly. I mean, I heard from a gentleman approaching 80 who has undergone chemo and is being encouraged by his own doctor to go get vaccinated. But in his message to me, he said he had no information on where to get a vaccine. When he called the hospital, they didn't have anything for him. So he was kind of lost. So here he is, he's vulnerable, he's priority one, and he needs a vaccination, but he's getting no information and no help in figuring it out. So I think at the very least the town can do is as we learn information, find our own ways to get it out and periodically update even up, because we all get calls.
Even if it's a pass through from the county, that would be beneficial.
I agree. Okay, so I'm gonna put a COVID update on the agenda for the 26th.
I have one other question, Mr. Chairman. We're going to probably be selecting a town administrator no later than the Tuesday following the interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how the schedule would work out or whether we would have to have something in place, but we should have something at some point on the agenda for negotiating a contract with the new town administrator.
Well, would you like me to put that on the agenda for the 26th?
Well, don't you think it's going to have to be done
before then? Okay.
Done fairly soon.
All right.
After we make the selection.
Okay. Any thoughts, recommendations?
Well, Eric and I did the last one, and if Eric's willing, I would be willing to do it with him. I think we work well together. And I think we both collectively have a lot of experience in this area.
Okay. Eric, did you want to? You're getting roped into another job here, Eric. So I'm just before the.
No, but
Oh yeah, sorry, I was working on my agenda. Yeah, I'm fine sitting on the negotiating committee again. You know, to Mike's point, we've done it a couple times, so probably makes the most sense.
Okay, so I think one of the things that we should do is when we vote on the administrator, we should also make sure that we have a vote on a committee to negotiate a contract.
Okay, you can put it on at the same time.
Yeah, we'll do that together, okay? And get you folks duly authorized, and we'll post that so that's fully transparent. All right, any other suggested topics for the 26th? One of the other things I just wanted to flag for the board, and I'm not sure this is an agenda item, but I did hear that on the Community Preservation Committee, there was kind of a split on the splash pad being recommended for Community Preservation Act funds. And I think, I don't, at least the way it's been conveyed to me, there's not an issue in the committee's deliberations on the splash pad. I think it's a question of the timing. It's my understanding, and maybe this needs to be clarified by town council, but that if they don't support, that committee does not support the splash pad, and if that makes it, probably disqualifies it from CPC funds. And then we might have to find another funding source to underwrite that project, which is around $500,000. So I guess my question is do we want to get an update on developments of that with respect to, and put that on the agenda for the board meeting? I'm open to hearing suggestions, pro and con to that, but I just,
I think there
that's
needs,
what Trish?
I think there definitely needs to be discussion. There's clearly some pushback about what goes first. There's a lot of political behind the scenes stuff going on. So I'd really like to have them in front of us and have a conversation. That'd be great.
Okay, that sounds good. Let me work on that then. Is that cool, everybody? Okay. So that's for the 26th. Any other upcoming agenda items to discuss?
Mr. Chairman, the only other issue that raises its head, to me at least, would be some determination on the drive-in site. We were dealing with it at one point in the late fall, and then it kind of fell off the map. I don't know if there's an urgency or not, given the information that we received about the land and about the appropriateness of a license, but I think just for chamber interests and some certainty, it might not be a bad idea to have that come up sooner rather than later if there's any hope or design for RFPs or any further consideration. Yeah,
I've asked for some additional legal clarity on that, and let me see how that is going, because there's a lot more complexity to this than meets the eye. It seems, I think for some reason, this particular site has always been haunted by complexity, both in terms of state laws, statutes, regulations, and whatnot. So let me find out where they're at and see if they're prepared to provide some clarity. Because what I've insisted on when I've been asked is I just want clarity. What uses can be done and under what authority? And because there are statutes, there's some restrictions on doing leases on portions of that property. So I'm not satisfied that the board's getting completely accurate or clear information and guidance. So I will check on that. Maybe we can at least get an update on how that process is going, where it stands, and can we get it? We can get that. Hopefully, get that soon. I think we can, but let me just find out. And if we can't get it for the 26th, I think we should try to get something shortly thereafter. I think they're on the verge of it. It's just taking a little bit more time than anybody would like right now. Okay. So message heard and message to be delivered. Okay. Other individual items. I'm going to go around the board. Mike, any individual items for tonight?
No.
Dan?
No, just gratitude for the process that we went through tonight with school committee. It's an important committee in our town, and I think Zane's going to be a wonderful addition, and I hope that the others follow through and really get committed on our committees and electoral process.
Got it. Tracy, any individual items tonight?
No, thank you.
Okay. How about you, Eric?
None, thank you. Okay.
The only individual item that I have is, I'm glad it was mentioned during public comments, a plug for the visioning. That's certainly something that's needed. The survey that's out, that's on our website and that's being circulated about the future of Yarmouth and helping get the community involved and thinking about the long-term vision for the town. I see Kyle's put up the flyer that's circulating. There's a website. I think everyone involved in this effort, particularly the planning board, is very aggressively trying to get people to fill out this survey by the end of January. So just a reminder, everyone, to fill out your survey. Because it's going to be crucial in terms of the board and other town committees to really get some sense from people in the community what their priorities are and what direction on some key questions we need to be considering or to take. So a plug for that. I want to also make another plug for something that the Age-Friendly Yarmouth group is heavily involved in. They have this Yarmouth Connects initiative, and they're trying to get everybody in the community involved in this exercise. I know in prior discussions, board members, I know Tracy has sort of raised the concern about our residents, some of them, particularly elderly residents, becoming isolated in this particular time in which we're dealing with the pandemic and COVID. And what the age-friendly Yarmouth community is doing is trying to build community support to get people just simply connecting to others, neighbors, friends, writing postcards, making phone calls, just checking in with people in your neighborhood or in your social circle that you think might be isolated, because this is a huge challenge for everyone in our community. So they have a whole host of suggestions about texting or visiting, obviously sufficiently distanced, of course, and taking necessary precautions, but writing a card, just finding ways to connect with people that may be very susceptible to being isolated and dealing with the challenges of the pandemic. So I want to make a plug for them in this work. So that's my, those are my individual items. And the next item on the agenda is the town administrator. Dan, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you, Mark. I have some technology issues I've been grappling with here. So I just need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Roll call vote. Eric Tolley.
Aye.
Tracy Post.
Aye.
Mike Stone.
Aye.
Dan Horgan.
Aye.
Mark Forrest votes aye.
Thank you.
On the update front, any updates, Dan?
You have in your packet the latest list of articles. There's likely to be an additional add-on that was related to the Brave Act. There was a email exchange with Selectman Talley and Selectman Forrest on that. That was an original item from Springtown meeting that was related to the COVID casualty, if you will, when we slimmed down the warrant. It's designed to give people who have lost a family member in a battle a tax relief situation. So there'll be some more information that'll appear right now as number 27 on the list for you.
Okay.
But I don't, this seems to be right now what I think is in front of us. There may be one other one I have to check in on it, but there'll be more detail coming on these as individuals, certainly before the 26th, before your meeting then. But this is how we see the warrant appearing now.
Okay, that's great. Any board members have any questions about how this is shaping up? Dan, did you have a question? Dan Horgan?
No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, one of the big topics that we haven't seen one like this in a while is number 12. It's the police HVAC system. As you know, fall town meeting appropriated a significant sum of free cash money to pay for some engineering work associated with the air handling system. That process, in order to get it to construction, is going to need an OPM, owner's project manager, and then design services, and then what looks to be a multi-million-dollar price tag. So I don't have any further detail on that, but that certainly is something that's going to be a very large cost center without an identified revenue stream at this point. But it is obviously very critical to the operations of the police headquarters.
Very good. Anybody on the board, questions? Okay, hearing none. Next item, Dan.
I'll be meeting with Mr. Lawton on Thursday. I was probably the first of a few Zooms to start the transitioning planning. So he'll be brought up to speed. Bob and I work very well together. I look forward to a pretty easy transition with that. I will say that there's some updates on remember when we delivered the budget to you back in December, we have an updated number from the retirement board. It's significantly better than what was put in the budget. So that information needs to be updated and we'll get to you. And also we'll be voting on the veteran services budget at the Cape Cod managers meeting on Thursday. So there'll be a few adjustments. Ed Centio has told me that with the exception of short-term rentals, local receipts are performing at about 21% of their pre-COVID levels, which is better news than what we planned for, but certainly suppressed nonetheless. One of the big benchmarks to look for in February, early March will be the excise tax. That'll kind of be a pretty good bellwether as to what relates to the town's economy. My recommendation as I prepare to depart is to probably stay the course like was done last year. It seems to be we're on a similar trajectory as it relates to revenues and expenses. I think we're in pretty good shape to do a transition. We've done a lot of really good things together. But the COVID impact on revenue receipts will continue to be a drag on the budget for a significant period of time for the future.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Anybody else? Any questions for?
Mr. Chairman, could I have one question?
Sure.
Dan, there's something in there from the airport regarding the comprehensive site assessment. It appears to have come in on December 10th.
Yeah.
And it was asking for a public comment period of 21 days. Did we miss that period?
No, you know what happened is a lot of the mail back in the December timeframe, we noticed we had a couple of other legal notices that came to us in January. There was a lot of problems getting the mail to us on time. If we had received it in a timely fashion, it would have been to you at the last meeting in December. So I think it was just a casualty of all the burdens that were in front of the U.S. Postal Service as it relates to mail. There's been no shortage of challenges.
That we missed our opportunity to offer some input. Do you know if it was provided to our airport representative?
I do not know that.
Yeah, just so that you know, for some reason, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen is sort of designated as the notifying party on this. This was in the Selectmen's mail, but there was no indication exactly what it was. So when I opened it, when I saw the mail, I noticed that it had these dates. And as Dan said, it came in late. So I wanted to at least make sure that it was in the packet for the board, so it had it. So the delay is really no fault of ours. It was literally, it came in, like Dan said, with a slowdown in mail. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a lot of mail that has arrived at least at my house, late, very late. And I think this is one of the casualties. This is one of the problems. I think if there's something that we have to say, I would recommend, Dan, that feel free to go on that link. Anybody on the board should feel comfortable going to that link. And if there's something that we want to offer or say, or something that we need to notify the airport about, we should definitely plan on doing it. So I don't think we should just because the time period is gone, I don't think we should feel uncomfortable or neglect to say anything if there's an issue there that we should respond to. I think the challenge is lately just for us, it's just that everybody's so busy. I don't know who's got the time to wade through all this material, but I would recommend have at it. And because it's in the packet, it's out there in the public domain, at least for folks here in Yarmouth. So if there's anybody watching that has an interest in this, they shouldn't be shy about looking at it and letting us know if they're concerned about it. So I just wanted to get more public eyes on this notice. And I think if there's an issue here with what they're doing, I know this board, would certainly be willing to look into it and follow up. So that's one of the reasons why I want to make sure it was in the packet as well. Okay.
Okay.
Dan, anything else?
No, that's it.
That's great. Okay, we're at the bewitching hour. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. It's a roll call vote. Tracy Post?
Aye.
Eric Tolley?
Aye.
Mike Stone?
Aye.